Chapter 763. Chao Xin's Plan. What does the report from Thunder Sound Temple say? Lin Qian asked. Chao Xian shook his head. Nothing, they have been very low-key recently. Yang Yuanhao is training his battalion. His Thunder Sound battalion has been expanded threefold. It probably will take some time to finish training. The name Yang Yuanhao caused Lin Qian's gaze to unnoticeably focus. He asked, have we found Yang Yuanhao's origins? Yes. He is originally the disciple of the second elder of Thunder Sound Temple. But he was not thought of highly before. When the Thunder Sound Shin methodology appeared, he was spectacular and rose up to quickly become the best battle general of Thunder Sound Temple, and the best of the 9 great Dhyana sect. However, this is already related to his master. The second elder is the younger brother of the sect leader. Chao Xian was unbridled in nature, but he was careful and attentive when doing his work, and was deeply relied upon by Lin Qian. Other than Thunder Sound Temple, is our progress in the other temples going well? Lin Qian asked. Thunder Sound Temple, Splendid Buddha Temple, Venerable Lotus Temple, Laughing Methraya Temple. It has not been smooth in these 4 temples. Heartleaf Temple has been heavily infiltrated by Tianhuan. The one that we have made the most progress is Skanda sect. We are fighting with Tianhuan for the others. Great Buddha sect, Karma Temple, Sarangama Heart sect. Chao Xian knew all this like the back of his hand. It is not easy to infiltrate the great temples. Lin Qian smiled helplessly. Of course. Chao Xian took a sip of wine and said unconcernedly. We first aim for the borders. It is easy at first and then becomes difficult later. This is the right way. However, Heartleaf Dhyana sect's attack on Mo Cloud Sea seal formations is detrimental to our actions. Yes, it inadvertently alerted them. Lin Qian frowned. They are a group of idiots. Heartleaf Dhyana sect wants to show fealty towards Tianhuan, and were impatient. I don't know who it was that found this weakness, but the skill of the mission was really terrible. No wonder Heartleaf Dhyana sect is ranked last among the 9 great Dhyana sects. Chao Xian shook his head and then said. But for Mo Cloud Sea, not being able to use the transportation formations is a noose around their throat. We also need to guard against this movement, as we also have the same weakness of the transportation formations. Lin Qian nodded. Go do this. Chao Xian acknowledged. All right. However, none of them thought much of this as a great matter. The transportation formations were a weakness, but unlike Mo Cloud Sea who were overly reliant on the formations, Kunlun's transportation were mostly by Jia rivers. While they had to spend more time traveling, it was much cheaper. If Kunlun used transportation formations over all of its vast realm, then the expenses in this area would be enough to kill Kunlun. Due to this, most of Kunlun's transportation formations were set up in important places, and these places almost all had battalions stationed there to guarantee safety. They only needed to increase the security level of the battalions stationed there. After Shueshirda's battalion has finished expanding, why don't we use the 9 great Dhyana sects as an opening? Lin Qian asked Chao Xian. Chao Xian said unrestrainedly, that is not good. Lin Qian smiled, and poured another cup of wine for Chao Xian. He asked sincerely for guidance, then what should be done? The 9 great Dhyana sects have many people with different intentions. If they feel an outside threat, they would abandon their own aims, unite, and face the invaders. Thunder Sound Temple is the strongest, and once they unite, with a top battle general like Yang Yuanhao, they would be a hard bone to swallow. Lin Qian was thoughtful. Chao Xian raised his wine cup, and threw his head back to drink. He was full of enthusiasm. But if we treat them peacefully, without threatening their existence, the inner conflicts will gradually become evident. We can scheme and recruit a portion of them, moving in the shadows. The 9 great Dhyana sects will be defeated without any attack over time. This is the best plan. You are right. Lin Qian was full of admiration, and then turned to another problem. Then in which direction should we expand? 100 Savage Realm. Chao Xin's voice was loud, a blush on his face. The Nether Realms produced a king, and is an enemy on the same level as us. We should not really fight them. Also, we know little about the Nether Realms, and it is not wise to enter. But 100 Savage Realm is full of warlords, and the best place to begin. As his interests were stirred, Chao Xian became half-dressed as he drank multiple cups. His gaze was intoxicated as he said slowly, "Looking at the world right now, Tian Huan, the Nether King and the Yao are enemies of the same level as us. They all possess one realm of land, have any experts and generals. But if one looks closely, there are differences. Kunlun, Tian Huan, and the Nether Realm were integrally united. The Yao Elder Council constantly fights internally for power. The new generation as led by Ming Yuyi and the older generation led by the Chief Elder are fighting in secret. This is an opportunity for our Kunlun." Lin Qian's eyes lit up. "We will secretly support Ming Yuyi?" Chao Xian smiled, and then shook his head. "No. Ming Yuyi's wings are not grown yet. Our benefit from supporting her will be limited. And once she is in power, the first thing that she will do is to reorganize the Council of Elders in order to get them to be of one mind, and then bite us. Then we will suppress Ming Yuyi?" Lin Qian asked in response. "We will support a third faction." Chao Xian was bright with light. 3 factions fighting is a state of equilibrium, and the one able to cause sustained infighting. Also, both the Chief Elder and Ming Yuyi will need to fight to gain support of the new faction. Most importantly, the third faction would be the weakest faction, and cannot break free of our control. Great plan. Lin Qian sighed. Chao Xin's excitement settled slightly and he said with a light laugh, "We cannot rush this and need to plan this slowly. It will probably take 5 to 10 years for it to be effective." Lin Qian laughed out loud. "I am still young. 10 years, I can even wait even if it is 20 years. Chao Xian nodded. "It is not easy for Darren to have such a state of mind. Mo Cloud Sea has challenged the Mo Martial Alliance, mister. What do you feel they desire?" Lin Qian mentioned another topic. For some reason, he felt danger from Mo Cloud Sea. He always had a feeling that this little power that was just a few dozen jia would one day become his archenemy. This indescribable feeling of danger always made him extremely wary of Mo Cloud Sea's every move. It was unexpected to many that Mo Cloud Sea had suddenly started to attack Mo Martial Alliance. Chao Xin's brow also furrowed. It is slightly puzzling. This time, the main commander is Bihan. This shows how much importance they place on this campaign. It means that it is a big one. Also, it is Bihan and not Gongsun Chao. This also implies that their aim in the campaign this time is not to attack cities and take over territory, but more akin to rapidly destroying or capturing something. Bihan's battalions are also puzzling in their movements. Bihan is definitely disguising their intentions. We most likely will know the aim of a battle general of Bihan's level only when the battle is finished. Lin Qian was silent. Intentions. We need to find their intentions. Inside the conference hall, Hai Jinyun's voice echoed. His figure was tall yet thin, his complexion faintly gold, his eyes narrow and long. His cheeks were sunken inwards, his gaze as sharp as a sword and seemed able to penetrate people. His voice was thin and high-pitched, giving people a feeling of metal grinding. At this time, it was filled with great fury. Hao Jinyun's temper was easy to set off, and he quickly became violent. The subordinates trembled, and the conference room was deathly silent. Hai Jinyun forced down the fury inside. He rubbed his forehead. His anger was not directed against his subordinates. He knew their skill level. He was angry at himself as he could not identify Bihan's intentions. When he learned that the enemy this time was Bihan, an unprecedented pressure filled him. However, this had not caused him to collapse but rather stimulated his strong fighting spirit. He felt his blood boil at the thought of fighting against such a top-level battle general. Yet as time went on, the movements of Bihan's campaigns became even harder to understand. If they could not find Bihan's true intentions, he would end up the reactive party. Facing a battle general of Bihan's level, it was enormously dangerous to be the reactive party. Several hours passed, and he received an insect message from an old general, Quan Pei. They had encountered Bihan. This was not of great surprise to him. He would not be surprised at any action that a battle general like Bihan would do. Also, from the location of the encounter, Bihan seemed to just be attacking the reinforcements. Was Bihan's goal really Bright Mountain Jia? He didn't believe it. But what reassured him slightly was that old General Quan Pei said in the insect message that they were delaying the other by using guerrilla tactics against them in order to drag on the battle for them to arrive. General Quan Pei's seemingly conservative strategy was actually the best in his view. They were fighting on home territory. If they could take up enough time, their advantage would increase like a snowball rolling off the mountain. Yet 8 hours passed, and Hai Jingyun did not receive any more insect letters from old General Quan Pei. This unusual situation caused Hai Jingyun to have a bad feeling. If the situation was normal, Quan Pei's second-in-command would send an insect message every 4 hours to report on the state of the battle. There were only 2 possibilities when there were no messages after 8 hours. One was that the battle was so intense that they didn't even have the time to send insect letters. The other possibility was that they had been completely eradicated. Based on convention, the first possibility was most likely. Quan Pei was skilled in battle formations. If he decided to enter a battle of attrition by relying on guerrilla fighting, he definitely would not be destroyed so easily. It was extremely difficult to exterminate a battalion that had decided to fight in a guerrilla fashion, much less finish it in 8 hours. However, as time advanced, Hai Jinyun's bad feeling increased. His emotions started to become restless. He tried to put his attention on searching for Bihan's target. So many dazzling and spectacular actions proved that Bihan had a clear goal in mind. He was only disguising it. Where is Shang Darren? He suddenly stopped walking and asked. Shang Darren has already reached Bright Homejia, and is about 3 days away from us, the subordinate hurriedly said. Hai Jinyun suddenly stopped walking. There wasn't any restlessness to be seen in his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "Set up base here and wait for Shang Darren." 10 hours had already passed. Hai Jinyun knew that the situation he had thought most unlikely probably already became reality. Chapter 764. 9 Great Diana Sects. Heartleaf Diana Sect. Zuomo's expression was full of unfriendliness. He didn't have any good feelings about this sect who had suddenly attacked them, and was said to be completely infiltrated by Tian Huan. While Heartleaf Diana Sect had taken out a great amount of evidence to prove that the dozen people who had attacked had been expelled from the sect long ago, anyone with eyes could see that this was just an excuse. Our goal this time is Heartleaf Diana Sect. Its mission is to settle the accounts from last time. No matter the time, Mo Cloud C is not one that would swallow and remain silent when someone bullies us. Zuomo's words immediately aroused similar feelings in the group. Motherfucker. A little Heartleaf Diana sect dare to target us? They don't want to live. We will beat them up. Beat the up completely. Beat them until they kneel and beg for mercy. The large hall was immediately full of fury. People from Mo Cloud C never feared anything. They had fought against Kuan Luan and Tian Huan. They were proud and found it hard to tolerate a little faction like Heartleaf Diana sect attacking them. However, since they dare scheme against us, then we will play with them. Everyone, prepare, we will depart tomorrow. We will make them understand why we dare to challenge Kuan Luan and Tian Huan while they can only play with mud in the corner. Zuomo's domineering announcement caused everyone's blood to boil. Soon Zuomo started to pick people. The ones chosen were happy and the ones that weren't had displeased expressions. Soon, Zuomo picked out an elite team of about 50 people. It was not an exaggeration to say they were elite. Just looking at the membership of the team, it was possible to see how grand the composition was. Zuomo, Ague Wei Sheng Zong Ru Lu Elite Seng Lianer. He had picked almost all of the top experts of Mo Cloud C. The other people were also ones that had followed Zuomo for many years. They were loyal to the point they could use their bodies to block a blow for Zuomo. Other than this, Zuomo also took along the Lil ones that had just finished leveling up. Zuomo did not worry about the safety of Mo Cloud C at all. Lil Miss was in charge of Cloud C Jia, and the great majority of the transportation formations were closed. While it had affected their business activities, it also caused Mo Cloud C's security to reach an unprecedented level. Right now, Mo Cloud C was truly a turtle hiding in its hard shell. The ambush from Heartleaf Diana sect caused Zuomo to be full of anger. On the surface, Heartleaf Diana sect's attitude was very friendly. They apologized and also agreed to recompense them. If he led battalions to attack Heartleaf Diana sect when they had this kind of attitude, it was easy to cause all of the 9 great Diana sects to start fighting with Mo Cloud C. Mo was still hoping that the 9 great Diana sect would be Mo Cloud C's shield. It was not profitable to start fighting due to one Heartleaf Diana sect. Heartleaf Diana sect was fearless because they knew this. There was nothing to criticize on the surface. Little Mo Gu was never one that was generous. His style was to always retaliate for any slights. Since they could not fight in the open, they would fight in the shadows. For the leaders of the other factions, they could not avoid feeling slightly repulsed by these types of schemes. But for Mo, this was what he was truly skilled in. Purely based on power, Heartleaf Diana sect was not a match for Mo. But this time, they were playing in the dark. Wei Sheng, Zhongru Luoli, they were all astoundingly powerful, and each of them could do things like kill people and defeat cities, but it was difficult for them to scheme. The one that was most skilled in scheming was undoubtedly Mo. Without his direction, this would not succeed. The 9 great Diana sect had always had a close relationship to Mo Cloud C, and the two sides had active business activity. The 9 great Diana sects had vast territories, and were abundant in resources. Mo Cloud C's Shun equipment was something that the 9 great Diana sects needed. The transportation formations between Mo Cloud C and the 9 great Diana sect were one of the few transportation formations that were still in use. The inspection at the transportation formation was strict, but for Mo and the others, people that could see through their disguises would definitely not appear at the transportation formation. Without needing any great effort, they successfully entered the 9 great Diana sects. When they entered the land of the 9 great Diana sects, the scenery was completely different than that of Mo Cloud C. Both the buildings and the people around gave them a different feeling. Diana Xiao revered secret paradises and little islands could be seen floating everywhere. There were also some Diana Xiao that built the temples on top of lucky clouds. There were many temples, and the sound of bells and chanting were everywhere. In the streets, what was most common were the Diana Xiao dressed in robes of all colors, walking about barefoot and bald. They held staffs, wooden fishes, had peaceful expressions. Some were half naked, their bodies like metal. These people usually had stern expressions, and their steps were powerful. Diana Xiao were rare in Mo Cloud C. It was the first time that everyone had seen so many Diana Xiao and all of them found it interesting. The group disguised themselves as a merchant group. In order to not attract any attention, the manager and attendants were all real and experienced ones. They frequently entered the 9 great Diana sect and were experienced. When Xiankong Temple had been here, this place was even more prosperous. The steward next to Mo said emotionally, "In that period of time when Xiankong Temple fell, all of Xiankong realm was quiet. They have just recovered some vitality after development in these years. This place only became prosperous again because it has a transportation formation that is connected to Mo Cloud C." "Which sect does this place belong to?" Mo asked curiously. "Thunder Sound Temple," the steward hurriedly responded. He knew that Mo did not know much about the 9 great Diana sects and introduced in detail. The Thunder Sound sect is first among the 9 great Diana sects. The best battle general of the 9 great Diana sects is Yang Yuan Hao, also of Thunder Sound sect. The development in its territory is the best, and it is the safest. Yang Yuan Hao. Mo couldn't help but still when he heard this name. Yang Yuan Hao was the strongest battle general that the 9 great Diana sect created in recent years, and was the true pillar holding up the 9 great Diana sects. The reason that Mo thought that the 9 great Diana sect qualified to be the barrier that could stop Kunlun was the existence of Yang Yuan Hao. The 9 great Diana sects that had Yang Yuan Hao was not at the same level as a 9 great Diana sects that did not have a Yang Yuan Hao. If they did not have Yang Yuan Hao, Mo would be the first to attack the 9 great Diana sects and swallow it before Kunlun and Tianhuan. Mo suddenly had a thought. If there was a chance, he wanted to meet this person that was one of the most important pillars of the 9 great Diana sects. He did not worry about Yang Yuan Hao's enmity and wariness of Mo Cloud C. That could not be avoided. Yet Mo believed that Yang Yuan Hao could see the dilemma that the 9 great Diana sects were under. Compared to Kunlun and Tianhuan, Mo Cloudsi was undoubtedly a better ally. The 9 Great Diana sect did not have many choices. Where is Yang Yuan Hao now? Zhuo Mo asked. The steward had a strained expression. This one does not know. We do not dare to search for information like this. Zhuo Mo smiled. The steward was right. He had assumed too much. He changed the topic. How much longer until we can reach Heatleaf Diana sect's territories? The steward said respectfully. If we use transportation formations, it will be about 20 or more days. Zhuo Mo couldn't help but gape. More than 20 days even with transportation formations, that was really far. Zhuo Mo decided that before they got to Heartleaf Diana sect, they would not make any trouble. But after flying for 2 days, Zhuo Mo and the others detected people keeping watch over them. The observers were well concealed, and they had switched people in the process. If it wasn't that the people present were all experts, it most likely would be difficult to detect it. Zhuo Mo did not attack. He pointed at the secret observers and asked the steward, "Do you know where they are from?" The steward made a careful examination. His expression changed slightly and he said in a low voice, "They are from Thunder Sound sect." Thunder Sound sect. Zhuo Mo was slightly surprised. Had they exposed themselves somewhere? Otherwise, Thunder Sound sect would not have found them no matter how strong they were. Zhuo Mo was very confident in his disguises. Definitely. Darren noticed the thunder scripts at their wrists. That is a trait unique to Thunder Sound sects. Only those that cultivate the Thunder Sound Shen methodology will have this kind of thunder script. The steward introduced in a low voice, and then asked, "Darren, what do you want to do?" Zhuo Mo thought and then said, "Pretend not to have found them, we will continue to do what we do." "Yes," the steward responded. Then a hint of worry rose in his eyes. He had traveled this path countless times, and it was the first time he encountered a situation like this. The observers changed shifts several times. Zhuo Mo and the others pretended to be ignorant, and traveled as usual. Only 5 days later, when Zhuo Mo and the others were about to leave the territories of Thunder Sound Temple, where they stopped. They were not the only ones. Many ships had been stopped at the border. Disciples of Thunder Sound Temple are here on orders to do an inspection. Many thanks for your cooperation. The voice of a Thunder Sound disciple spread. Dozens of Thunder Sound disciples danced in the air. They wore Shen equipment and seemed as though they were facing a great enemy. Some of the disciples had staffs that flashed with light and could attack at any moment. "Big brother, what has happened here? This has never occurred before." The steward was smart and immediately went over to inquire. "Who knows? It started a few days ago. I heard that thing was lost. That person's really daring to dare to steal from Thunder Sound Temple." The one that spoke was a middle-aged person who had a weathered face. "Yeah, but we are the ones that lose out. This delays us," another person said. The middle-aged person shook his head and said, "Just cooperate and it will be fine." The disciples of Thunder Sound sect are slightly domineering, but they are disciplined. They won't take anything or delay us unnecessarily. If this is on Heartleaf Diana sect's territory, don't think about getting out unless you bleed a bit. "Oh, the disciples of Thunder Sound Temple are this disciplined?" Zhuo Mo inserted. "The bigger sects like Thunder Sound sect, Lotus Sutra Temple, they are all disciplined. Those little sects are not," the middle-aged person explained. At this time, the Thunder Sound Temple disciple that stared at Zhuo Mo flew towards another disciple in the air and whispered. That disciple immediately turned to look at Zhuo Mo's group. He beckoned to a few others that landed around Zhuo Mo and surrounded his group. The surrounding people immediately ran away in fear. Zhuo Mo hadn't thought that the other was truly coming for him. Their luck was really bad to encounter such a thing. "This one is Thunder Sound Temple disciple Liao Yu, greetings." The leading Thunder Sound Temple disciple bowed with a solemn expression. "Our sect is conducting a routine inspection. Please cooperate and forgive us for our disturbance." The surroundings immediately became quiet. The eyes of everyone in the group turned towards Zhuo Mo. Chapter 765. Lil Black's achievement. Let them inspect. Zhuo Mo said baldly. For one, he was curious about the goal of these Thunder Sound Temple disciples. They had been targeted from the start, and it did not appear to be a coincidence. Secondly, Zuoyamo also wanted to see if their disguise could pass the test. If they could not even work on some Thundersound Temple disciples, it would be embarrassing if they went to Heartleaf Diana sect and were discovered. Little Emogu wanted face. Since he decided to go the devious way, they naturally could not show any slip-ups. Tian Huan had heavily infiltrated Heartleaf Diana sect, and there definitely were experts that Tian Huan had sent hiding among them. Zuoyamo had made a decision to declaw Heartleaf Diana sect. These Tian Huan Xiuzha in hiding were on Zuomo's blacklist. It had to be said that the disguises of Zuomo's group were very good. They were dressed plainly without any decoration. Other than Zuoyamo, who was dressed slightly better due to acting as the boss of the merchant group, the other people were attired normally. Their shun equipment and other things were stored in their rings, and their rings were also disguised to appear like normal rings. The Ling steeds that they rode were also appropriate to their identity, all of them Ling-horned horses. They were cheap, had high endurance, and were easy to feed. Any inn could supply the appropriate Ling grasses to feed them. For merchant groups who cared about overhead costs, they liked the Ling-horned horses. Several Thundersound Temple disciples immediately encircled them, and there were some other disciples that were warily staring at them. Zuoyamo and the others were experienced fighters and unaffected by these Thundersound Temple disciples. The Thundersound Temple disciple who had gone in to inspect quickly came out and shook his head. The disciple leader hadn't expected that they wouldn't find anything at all. He hesitated and then said as though nothing has happened. "Great apologies for the disturbance, you may go." Just as the steward was about to say thanks and leave, Zuoyamo suddenly spoke. "Are you looking for something?" The leading disciple stilled. He clearly had not been prepared for Zuomo's question. He probably had not thought that someone would ask in a situation like this. However, the other's expression was normal, and there was nothing fishy. He hesitated before nodding and saying, "Yes. A treasure of our sect was stolen, and we are looking for it." Thinking about how the mission was incomplete, his mood immediately became terrible. He waved his hand impatiently. "You may go." The other merchant groups immediately started as though they had been pardoned. Seeing the merchant groups hurriedly leaving, the leading disciple had a thoughtful expression. He quickly realized what had been wrong. The other had been too calm, and didn't show any reverence because of his identity. That group is suspicious. A tall disciple came over and said in a low voice. Lao Jiu said that he felt unusual vibrations coming from them. Unusual vibrations? The leading disciple frowned. Yes, it was short, but Lao Jiu said that it definitely isn't an illusion. Unusual vibrations does not mean they are hiding the thing. The leading disciple shook his head. But it is very likely. You know that Lao Jiu's sense is unusual. Then what do you think we should do? The leading disciple was persuaded. Looking at their direction, it seems that they are heading towards Lotus Sutra Temple. Let's first close the transportation formation towards Lotus Sutra Temple, the tall disciple said coldly. Then they will only have one path. The leading disciple's expression changed slightly. Black Sea flying route. Zuoyamo was extremely bored. Everyone around him was a cultivation maniac. Other than the stewards that could chat with him, the other people either cultivated or cultivated. Wei Sheng's eyes were closed and he was in meditation. Zhongru was in meditation. Luoli was in meditation. Even the ones he picked out were in meditation. Agui's eyes were not closed, but Zuoyamo knew that she did not need to meditate. She could cultivate like this. The boring long journey was just like normal. The only one that did not cultivate was Tsung Lianer, but this horrid person made tea and idly enjoyed the scenery. She didn't show any intentions of sharing a cup with Zuoyamo, who really was the boss. Zuoyamo was furious, but he had to admit that some people's presences could not be copied. Zuoyamo tried Tsung Lianer's idle and serene style, but it was not right when he did it. The strength of the stewards could not compare to Zuoyamo. They were tired by the long travel and didn't have much energy to speak. The Zuoyamo board could only let the little ones out and started to play with them. Silly Bird naturally ignored him. She was usually proud, and now that her strength had grown immensely, she became even prouder. That imperious gaze was still so domineering. 10th grade was a cultivation fanatic, Sunshine was slightly bashful, Lil Pagoda, Lil Fire, and Lil Black were the best at flattering him. They flew in circles around Zwa-Mo and fawned over him. Zwa-Mo was very comforted. Zwa-Mo's hand felt a point of pain. He bent down and saw that it was Lil Black on his hand using its short legs to pull Zwa-Mo, its antennae furiously waving. Seeing Lil Black like this, Zwa-Mo's eyes suddenly lit up, the bored expression on his face sweeping away. Lil Black had been a good treasure hunter in the past, and after spending some time on Chung Shi's hands, it should have improved. Thinking about the valuable materials and Jingshi that Chung Shi had exploited out of him, Zwa-Mo felt his heart ache. Lil Black. Good Lil Black, you have to make me proud. If you can find some great treasure trove for your old man will give you some meat to eat. What? You don't want meat? That's all right, your old man will eat meat. You can drink soup. Did the heavens see the G was in poverty now, and wanted to make it up to G? Zwa-Mo put down Lil Black from his hand with anticipation. Lil Black climbed off Zwa-Mo's hand and flew towards the rear of the convoy. Zwa-Mo's mind became alert, and he followed closely. Lil Black landed on the last transport boat. Zwa-Mo stilled and then had a suspicious expression. This transportation boat carried wares that were used as part of their identities. They were items from Mo Cloud Sea that were very welcome. If they were sold to Heartleaf Diana sect and the surroundings, they could make a significant profit. The journey was relatively hard, but there were many people that this alone would arouse suspicion. This ship had come with them from Mo Cloud Sea. There shouldn't be a problem. Zwa-Mo's pupil suddenly contracted. Had someone sneaked onto the ship? The guards on the ship saw Zwa-Mo arrive, and were startled awake. When they saw Zwa-Mo's hand move to signal to be on their guard, their expressions changed. The other must be powerful to have managed to sneak onto the ship under such a heavy guard. Noticing Zwa-Mo's unusual actions, all of the merchant group were alerted. They were all experienced and worked well together. They didn't make a sound at all. They soundlessly flowed and spread into a net that had no weakness. Lil Black stopped outside the storage deck, its antennae waving furiously. But in the next moment, its body suddenly streaked back rapidly and hid behind Silly Bird's back. When he got to here, Zwa-Mo finally discovered an almost imperceptible presence. He was shocked, his body trembling. This presence was extremely weak. Even though he was so close, if it wasn't for Lil Black's warning, he may have missed it. Someone had really sneaked onto the ship. Zwa-Mo felt a chill, but he was also angry. They had just entered the 9 great Diana sects and such a great oversight had been made. Zwa-Mo felt he was embarrassed, especially when there were so many experts around. The friend inside, do not hide. Come out. Zwa-Mo's tone was icy, the shun technique on his hand ready to be cast. The entire net gave off a suffocating presence. There wasn't any movement inside. That almost intangible presence became even weaker, as though it almost disappeared. Zwa-Mo was shocked. The other seemed to disappear into thin air. But he knew that the other had not truly disappeared, but had just hid away all of their presence to become one with the surroundings. This caused the illusion that the other had disappeared. An expert. Zwa-Mo quickly made his decision, his tone even icier. If Sir does not come out by the count of 3, then be crushed with this ship. Free. Just as Zwa-Mo shouted this, a gray shadow suddenly charged in front of him. Zwa-Mo was astounded, but he reacted quickly. The shun technique that he had prepared accurately hit the gray shadow. Zwa-Mo did not keep anything back with this attack, and the gray shadow crumpled. At the same time he heard Wei Xing Shixiang shout, "Go back!" A dazzling red sword light broke through the air. A faint, almost intangible presence, twisted strangely in the air, and suddenly appeared in another corner. Return. Sung Lian'er's expression turned dark. Her afternoon tea had been interrupted, and she was not in a good mood. Dozens of moon crescents appeared around her, the sharp edges crisscrossing as though she wanted to dismember the shadow. The almost intangible shadow took a turn again. He charged directly towards Agui. Everyone else had expressions as they did not bear to look. Agui's figure flashed as though she disappeared in the air. The shadow felt the surrounding net open, and was overjoyed. They gathered all the strength in their body in an attempt to charge through the opening. Yet before he could act, he felt a grip around his neck. He lost control of his body, and the world around him spun. Bam! Holding his neck, Ague swung her arm as though she was swinging a great hammer to hit the ship. The strong force caused the boards on the ship that were as hard as rock and covered in seal scripts to crack. The fragments shot into the surroundings. The shadow felt a great pain, and then fell unconscious. Before he lost consciousness, he saw blurry faces. The expressions on the faces of these people were really strange. It seems to be sympathy, or pity, or seemed to say, just as expected. Chapter 766. Bird Mission Snapped Red Silk had been uprooted. This stunning news spread in the Yao underground world like a plague. The underground world was not as large as people imagined. While the influence of the underground had silently grown in recent years, every leader with a clear head knew that this golden age of prosperity was a temporary byproduct of the inner conflict in the Council of Elders. But the collapse of Snapped Red Silk still caused an earthquake in the underground world. In truth, Snapped Red Silk did not have large territories, but their skilled management made the faction a firmly established one. Their feelers reached into every corner of their territory. Unless it was a matter of life and death, there were not many factions that would touch them. They were strong for their size, and one would have to pay a significant price to defeat them. Also, Snapped Red Silk's base was like an impenetrable barrel of metal. Even if one won, it was a complex and troublesome matter to digest a territory. Snapped Red Silk was strong because they were wealthy. The reason that they were wealthy was because they had a monopoly over the local low-level materials business. The profit in low material business was not high, but because the majority of powerful factions were not willing to waste manpower on controlling this business, it was left to the underground factions. Snapped Red Silk was like all other underground powers. They usually were greatly connected to the lowest rungs of society. They had abundant manpower and no competition from large factions. Snapped Red Silk had quickly taken over almost 7/10 of the low-level materials business in their territory. Any business, if it was a monopoly, would gain great profits even if the profit margin was slim. Low-level materials were not eye-catching, but they were traded in great volume. The Snapped Red Silk that had a monopoly over the market started to manipulate the market to obtain even more profit. They were skilled, and the prices they gave the large factions were far lower than market price. With this method, they hadn't affected the benefits of the major factions, and even built a terrifying web of connections. Yet a faction like this had been exterminated. The faction that had destroyed it was called Blackfire. Blackfire was a relatively unknown name in the underground world, but this unknown little faction had defeated Snapped Red Silk that everyone had been unable to deal with. It really was fantastical. The tentacles of the underground factions were like an invisible spiderweb. Any gust of wind or movement would be felt. Soon all kinds of intelligence about Blackfire ended up on the desks of leaders everywhere. Yuqin Lai's recent days were extremely comfortable, and there was a joyful expression on his dark face that could not be disguised. He had a few more powerful fighters under his command. The struggles of Snapped Red Silk were like that of a wild beast at the end of its life. After their last struggle had been blocked, they completely fell apart. Compared to the difficulty of the battles before, the battles after the added personnel were so easy it was like sightseeing. However, eliminating the remaining of Snapped Red Silk's power was slightly troublesome. While Yuqin Lai was young, he was skilled and cunning. The secret pieces that he had set up before were now coming into use. Many thanks, everyone. Yuqin Lai expressionlessly stated his thanks. Next to him, Tao Wei and the others looked with complicated expressions as Nan Yu and the others. The underground world did not lack for experts like Wu Ying who were strong, but the people in front of them were so strong they felt fear and awe. Experts of this level could only be supported by those large factions. Boss support was really unfathomable. Tao Wei and the others could see that while Nan Yu's group was strong, they were definitely not people that worked in the shadows. They did not have any presence of darkness, and their personalities were honest and straightforward like their way of fighting. No problem. Wariness flashed across Nan Yu's eyes. She had an instinctive wariness of these people of the shadows. If she did not see it with her own eyes, she would not believe that Darren would have this kind of faction that worked in the shadows. She asked directly, "What do we need to do next? If possible, we hope to finish as soon as possible." The gazes of everyone behind her gathered on Yuqin Lai. They were extremely wary of this young but extremely vicious and cunning youth. They had watched as Yuqin Lai expressionlessly executed more than 30 people. This guy was a demon. They only hoped now to finish their mission as soon as possible, and then leave this place. They like sunlight and not darkness. Yuqin Lai jerked the corners of his lips. It could have been in mirth or disdain. But he turned and nodded at Tao Wei. Tao Wei understood, and took out a jade scroll to hand to Nanyu. Nanyu took the jade scroll with some puzzlement, and then started to read. This person is one of Darren's targets. Yuqin Lai's voice carried a darkness that would make people feel cold. Nanyu finished reading and handed the jade scroll to others. She raised her head. "I cannot see what is special about this person." Tao Wei smiled slightly. Her lips moved and an enchanting voice spread. Songling Shui, female, 26, a member of the Gray family. Gray family. Song Zhe couldn't help but say. He was curious at encountering someone with the same surname as him. Tao Wei did not know why Song Zhe was shocked. She continued to give a detailed explanation. The Tsong family of New Flat Jia. It is a local faction. Her parents passed away when she was 11 and she became the family head, the youngest family head in the history of the Gray family. Nanyu immediately had a feeling of empathy. This was a situation similar to the one she experienced in the past. She knew just how difficult it was for a child of 11 to become the family head. New Flat Jia's other factions all assumed that the Gray family's decline was certain, and this included factions that were enemies of the Gray family. Therefore, 3 local factions allied together and attacked the Gray family. Yet no one expected was that the Gray family defeated the 3 families under the leadership of Songling Shui. This battle made the Gray family and Songling Shui famous in the New Flat Jia. Everyone listened enchanted. Many people had astonished expressions. This would have been so difficult for an 11-year-old girl. After that, the Gray family quickly grew in power under the leadership of Songling Shui. 3 years later, the Gray family became one of the 5 biggest factions in New Flat Jia. Under her initiative, the 5 strongest families of New Flat formed the New Flat Merchant Association. The chair was Songling Shui. That year she was 15. Everyone gaped as they heard this. The New Flat Merchant Association developed quickly, and in the following years, their business expanded to more than 30 of the surrounding jia. Oh, I forgot to tell everyone, Songling Shui is 17 this year. So there are really geniuses in the world. Nanyu couldn't help but sigh in astonishment. The orange-haired Yao crowded over and said shamelessly, "Is Sister Nan talking about me?" Owen coldly said, "Idiot." Nanyu's eyebrow twitched. These two were starting again. She brought out her killing move. "Shut up. Don't forget what boss said before you left." The orange-haired Yao shrunk his head back and said, "Good brothers are loyal. I am peerlessly loyal." Owen was silent. A look flashed through Tao Wei's eyes. She looked at boss. Boss' eyes were closed. "Please continue," Nanyu said. Songling Shui is skilled in management. Under her reigns, the Tsong family is not just organized, it has quickly grown. Her talent and skill also aroused the attention of many factions. The New Flat Merchant Association has some power, but compared to the larger factions, it isn't worth a mention. I heard that even the Council of Elders is interested in her. Tao Wei's eyes moved. "Do you know what is the best way to recruit a young female?" Nanyu said coolly, "Force a marriage." Tao Wei laughed lightly. Miss Nanyu is really smart. There are many ways of dealing with Songling Shui. Songling Shui does not have much to bargain with. The most effective method is a marriage proposal. Songling Shui is beautiful, she is rich, and skilled in management. It will be greatly profitable if one could marry this kind of woman. Up until now, Songling Shui has received over 10 marriage proposals. None of these factions are ones that she, or the New Flat Merchant Association can afford to offend. These people should be killed. A one who hated being forced to do anything said in fury. The orange-haired Yao said righteously, "Only a genius can save a beautiful maiden." Nan Yu ignored the two of them. What does she have to do with us? Yu Qinlai, who had been resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. This is one of the targets from the higher-ups. Do not ask me the reason. You only need to know that she is your target, and I will help you complete the mission. What do we have to do? Ming Juzi asked. Of the group, he had the most ideas. I leaned towards kidnapping her. Yu Qinlai shrugged and seemed cunning like a fox. However, this is your mission. You will decide how to carry out your mission. The higher-ups want to recruit a talent that is skilled at internal management. Of course, if you accidentally damage her, we have other targets. Such a cold and emotionless person. Nan Yu's dislike increased. However, Ming Juzi answered before she did. You mean that after completing this, we have other targets to reach? Yes. Yu Qinlai said coolly. The preliminary list to investigate was 103 people. After investigation and selection based on the higher UPS criteria, there are 16 in left. 16 people. Nan Yu and the others gaped. This number surprised their imagination. These 16 are all talented. Each of them is not from strong faction and are easy to get to. Yu Qinlai looked at the group and jerked the corners of his mouth. You should thank me. I helped you finish a large part of the work. There are 8 that are already taken care of through terror, kidnapping and bribery, and another one we just got from Snapped Red Silk. You mean we have 7 left? Ming Juzi immediately caught the point. Yes, Yu Qinlai said expressionlessly. I suggest you first go after Tsongling Xue. In the ranking from the higher-ups, she has the highest score. While the final result will only be known after they fight it out, I favor her. Also, the level of this mission is bird. I believe that you know what this means. Nan Yu and the others were shocked. Chapter 767, Bronze Hoop Remnant, Bird, was the highest level of mission for MO Cloud C. Zui MO had set up MO Cloud C's mission structure using the Lil One's rankings. From highest to lowest it was Bird, Pagoda, Butterfly, Fire, and Worm. Bird level missions were the highest priority and most important missions of MO Cloud C. It meant that this mission was a crucial mission that would determine life and death for MO Cloud C. Bird level missions were not easily announced, but once they were, every person of MO Cloud C had a duty and responsibility to serve for the bird level mission. For any bird level mission, if it was necessary, all the power of MO Cloud C could be mobilized to complete it, and they were obligated to do so. There were not many that knew of this compulsory rule. Normal citizens would almost never encounter missions above fire level. But Nan Yu and the others had followed Zuo for many years and knew about the inner workings. So when Yu Qinlai stated the mission ranking, they could not keep their composure. What do we need to do? Nan Yu asked gravely. Her expression was stern and focused. Everyone else, even the orange-haired Yao, put away their cheer and became focused. The temperature of the conference room suddenly dipped, the atmosphere becoming heavy and solemn. Tao Wei and the others felt slightly uneasy. They felt surprised at this suddenly transformation, but more of what they felt was shock. They were experienced, and they could see the great importance that Nan Yu and the others placed on this mission. It came from their hearts. The level of the mission changed their attitude. A scene like this would only appear if the other had strict organization, and they strongly identified with the organization. This was a strict, regulated, and united organization. They could not see the organization behind Boss, but this was the tip of the iceberg, and made them feel great awe and terror. Yu Qinlai seemed to not feel the suddenly murderous atmosphere. He was still expressionless. This is a problem you will need to consider. From my position, using tactics like kidnapping and such is the most convenient. But considering that they will become your coworkers in the future, I suggest using gentler tactics. For example, Nan Yu found that she could not treat this Lord of the Darkness using a normal view. The other was not as strong as them, but in terms of viciousness and cunning, all of them added up were not a match for him. No matter how strong a 17-year-old female is, she is still 17. Yu Qinlai glanced at Nan Yu. There is a common saying, you give her what she needs. Ming Juzi had a thoughtful expression. Nan Yu was even more direct. What does she need? while she had never seen Yu Qinlai, and the aura of darkness on the other made her uncomfortable. But since the higher-ups had given the bird-level mission to him, it showed that this youth of the underground was trustworthy. Yu Qinlai had clearly been investigating and working on this for a long time, and he definitely knew more than they did as well as being more experienced. In this kind of situation, it was more reliable to listen to the suggestions of a professional. A look flashed across Yu Qinlai's expressionless face, but then it disappeared. He turned to Chai Shanqing, speak. Chai Shanqing was not surprised. He elegantly nodded at each person. His voice was clear as though it contained a power that would make people unconsciously trust him. First, we will analyze Congling Shue's personality. She was able to save the Gray family from a dangerous situation and created the new Flat Business Association. Other than her outstanding abilities, she has unique personality traits. She is determined to the point of stubbornness, decisive, and filled with confidence and a strong sense of responsibility. Everyone felt this was reasonable and nodded. Chai Shanqing smiled elegantly. At this time, he was like a wise and educated teacher without any aura of darkness. She is extremely confident. This kind of confidence has helped her overcome many obstacles. Due to this, even though she seems surrounded on all sides, her stubbornness and confidence keep her believing that she can find a way out. This will make her try all kinds of methods to resolve the danger present. Even though all the factions are pressuring her, she will not surrender immediately. She will struggle for a time. But let us first analyze her situation. We will find that the probability that she can break free of the situation is low. The enemies can obtain both the person and wealth. Who would let her go? Those greedy people would not do so. According to our investigation, the ones behind those acting now are mighty. So mighty that even Ming Yuyi is wary. Ming Yuyi is Congling Shue's best person to side with, but Ming Yuyi is busy consolidating her power and obtaining the support of other elders. She would only interfere with the plans of other elders in one situation, when the benefit surpasses her losses. But it is clear that the current 17-year-old Congling Shui and the new Flat Merchant Association do not possess such high value. Nan Yu and the others unconsciously stopped breathing. They listened entranced. In a few words, the complex situation became clear. Consequently, in my predictions, the possibility that Congling Shui can break free is very low. What determines this is her other trait, her strong sense of responsibility. It is not good to act against Congling Shui openly, but there are many ways to deal with the Gray family and the new Flat Merchant Association. For the future of the Gray family, I think the probability that Congling Shui will make a compromise is high. Of course, I have to admit that Congling Shui may be able to get out due to her great talents. Therefore, we need to work in the shadows to stop any chance that she can get out. Why? Nan Yu frowned. She innately did not like these machinations in the shadows. Chai Shanqing smiled as though he was not discussing a conspiracy, but a theoretical problem. No matter how hardy, how determined she is, do not forget her age. A hopeless situation, the feeling of defeat and hopelessness created by failure of her struggles, that is enough to take her to her most fragile state. She will struggle in a darkness where she cannot see any hope. At this time, we only need to give her one thread of hope, and we can recruit her. This is our only chance. Nan Yu and the others shuddered, their bodies cold. Song Zhe couldn't help saying, "Why don't we find her now? If we offer her enough, we may be able to persuade her." Chai Shanqing laughed lightly. "We will never be able to offer as much as the others. Once we appear, Congling Shui will not give up on the chance to use us to strengthen her bargaining position. She will then sell us off to the highest bidder, and together they will become enemy. Then they will use all kinds of schemes to push us out of the game. We can only hide in the darkness, but they can work in the light. This means that what we can give cannot be more than what they can. Do not ever underestimate the cunning and greed of these families. They are bloodsuckers. What they are most skilled in is using their background and power to push others out of business." He then smiled coldly and said, "Congling Shui is still waiting for a better offer, yet she does not understand these people well enough. They will not give her a chance. They are like a pack of wolves, cunning and cooperative. They can compromise among themselves, but they cannot accept prey bargaining with them. This is an advantage that their power gives them. They have used this advantage for thousands of years. They are familiar with everything that can be used, and are used to using it to get the most benefits. Everyone was silent. Yu Qinlai's cool voice interrupted their thoughts. He is an expert in this field. If you are willing to listen to his opinion, he will become your helper. A long time later, Nan Yu spoke. Many thanks, Mr. Chai. Chai Shanqing elegantly bowed. It is my honor to work for you. Zhua Mo examined this guy who had been stripped until he only had one piece of cloth left, and was locked up by numerous jinji. The people around him looked predatorily at this tender-looking person with unfriendliness. Someone had managed to get onto the ship without being detected, and this happened in front of Darren. All of them felt ashamed and were not in good moods. The captive was short and the disguise on his face had been cleaned off to show an ordinary face. But there were many faint scripts carved on his body that seemed like the Mo matrices that Mo Cloud Sea carved. It was the first time Zhua Mo had seen similar things in other places. After inspecting them, Zhua Mo found that what was inscribed on the person were not Mo matrices, but a kind of unique seal script. This kind of seal script already had some of the traits of Shen glyphs. It was these seal scripts that were close Shen glyphs, which allowed his presence to be hidden to such an astounding degree that none of the numerous experts present detected him. The effects of these seal scripts broadened Zhua Mo's view. After making a copy of all the seal scripts on this guy's body, Zhua Mo's attention moved on to another item. A half-section of a bronze hoop. Zhua Mo knew with a glance that this bronze hoop was the remnant of an ancient Shen device. The simple and almost crude patterns on the bronze hoop were the signature of that era. Also, there was a very faint yet unique Shen power vibration from the bronze hoop. This was probably what Thunder Sound Temple had been searching for. Zhua Mo played with it before handing it off to the others. This thing probably wasn't simple as it appeared, being the remnant of a Shen device and to cause Thunder Sound Temple to make such a great fuss over it. He motioned to the guard next to him. The guard kicked the unconscious captive. The captive slowly woke up. When he opened his eyes, he looked dazedly at the unfamiliar faces. When his gaze encountered a Goe, he shook and immediately woke up. Some terrifying memories flashed through his mind, and his body unconsciously shook. At this time he heard someone speak. Speak, who are you? Chapter 768. A fatal temptation. The captive's mind was stunned, but he quickly realized his situation. The people around him had unfriendly expressions, and the murderous presences they gave off caused his heart to instinctively tremble. Relating them to the terrifying experts he had fought against before his unconsciousness, he knew that he had been caught this time. I am Lao Deguang. Zhua Mo and the others exchanged a look. No one heard of this name before. Don't use this kind of name to fool people. How can someone with your skills be unknown? Zhua Mo looked sardonically at Lao Deguang. Lao Deguang knew that there was no chance today, and briskly confessed. Other people call me the Shadowless Ghost Hand. Shadowless Ghost Hand. The eyes of the steward next to Zhua Mo widened, his expression changing as he shouted. He saw Zhua Mo turn around and hurriedly explained. The Shadowless Ghost Hand is a famous thief around the 9 Great Diana sect territories. They say that he has never failed. The 9 Great Diana sects has a great bounty, but no one was able to catch him. We captured a big fish this time. Lao Deguang listened to the narration of the steward, and a proud expression rose. Zhua Mo saw the expression on his face and smiled. Oh, I didn't see it. You are a famous character. Lao Deguang's expression stilled. Thinking about his captive situation, the pride on his face immediately disappeared. What is this? Zhua Mo picked up the bronze hoop remnant that had been returned to him and waved it. Do not try to fool us. The Thunder Sound Temple seems to be searching for this. If we give this thing and you to them, other than the bounty, we might get even more benefits from Thunder Sound Temple. Lao Deguang's expression tensed. He thought about how his fate would be worse than death if he was handed to Thunder Sound Temple. The other's unfriendly gaze was vicious and experienced. He quickly stopped his other plans and obediently answered, Yes, Thunder Sound Temple is searching for this. This is a token for an ancient ruin. A token for an ancient ruin? Zhua Mo narrowed his eyes. Everyone familiar with him knew that this expression was when he was interested. Since he had confessed, Lao Deguang decided to do it to the end. Yes. An ancient ruin was found in the 9 Great Dhyana sects, but the ruin is shrouded in a strange power field. It is impossible to enter without the token. There are 13 tokens in total, all of them remnants of Shin devices. Not long after the ruins were discovered, divination masters identified the time that the ruin will open. It is in 1 month. 13 tokens? How come there are so many tokens? Zuo smiled ambiguously at Lao Deguang. For some unknown reason, Zuomo's smile caused Lao Deguang's bones to shiver. He forced himself to remain calm. I do not know. These Shin device remnants were found around the ruin, 13 total. The 9 Great Dhyana sects each have 1, and the remaining 4 are in the hands of unknown people. A token for an ancient ruin is enough to make the Thunder Sound Temple so desperate? I don't believe it. Zuo shook his head. Lao Deguang immediately panicked. Some of the information on the ancient ruin has been uncovered. It has other things, but there is a treasure that no one is able to refuse. That is why the Thunder Sound Temple is so desperate. What treasure? Zuo smiled enchantingly. Treasure. Oh, this word make one so excited. Lao Deguang had a solemn expression. A completely preserved ancient Shin device nucleus. Zuomo's eyes suddenly lit up, the smile on his face completely disappearing. He asked in a deep voice, "What did you say?" Lao Deguang's face turned ashen pale. He finally knew why this person made him feel an indescribable danger. This person's power was greater than he had imagined. He was like a deep and unfathomable lake. The strong pressure and feeling of suffocation rushed at him like a ferocious lion that touched his face. He could even see the threads of blood lingering on the fangs and claws. It is a completely preserved ancient Shin device nucleus. Lao Deguang's voice trembled. While I don't know how it was preserved, this is certain. He instinctively swallowed and forced out. Each token can only take 5 people inside. Other than the 9 Great Dhyana sects who each have a token, 4 of the tokens have disappeared. They most likely are in the hands of the 9 Great Dhyana sect. 1 more token means they can take in 5 more people. The hopes of getting the treasure is greater. Why can only 5 people be taken in? Zuo asked in a cold voice. I don't know. Supposedly it is an ancient Jinji. Everyone is saying this. Lao Deguang shook his head. He was afraid of angering Zuo and hurriedly said, but this is likely reliable. Otherwise, those large sects would not be so desperately searching for extra tokens. Thunder Sound Temple took this token from someone else. It has passed through the hands of 7 owners. They are all dead. He suddenly realized what he was saying, his face turning a few shades whiter. He hurriedly elaborated. I'm not talking about you. Zuo did not care. From the words that Lao Deguang said, he knew that the other was not speaking lies. Originally, he did not intend to interfere in this matter. Others might be curious in ancient ruins, but Zuo had experienced many already. However, a completely preserved ancient Shin device nucleus caused his little heart to jump. Shin device raiment, the top and best of the world right now. City destroyer and arsonist had almost bankrupted Mo Cloud Sea, especially when those top-ranked materials were all used up. These materials could not be bought with Jingshi. Even if Mo Cloud Sea was rich right now, they did not have other avenues to get so many top materials. Also, most of the top materials were used to forge Shin device nuclei. The Shin device nuclei made using the weapon layering craftsmanship could be called Shin device nuclei, but there was still an impassable chasm between those and the true Shin device nuclei. Due to this, no matter how many creative and novel ideas Zuo and the Golden Crow camp had, they could not forge new Shin device raiments. Zuo, the leader of Mo Cloud Sea, didn't even have a Shin device raiment. Little Mo was displeased by this. Searching for top materials almost became a long-term mission of Mo Cloud Sea. The rewards were high, but the progress at present was still far from the goal. Little Mo guessed Shin device raiment naturally was also far away. Hearing that there was a complete Shin device raiment in the ruin, Zuomo's mind immediately became lively. This Shin device raiment was a fatal temptation for Zuo. Even more advantageous was that one token could only take along 5 people. This meant that those that were able to enter the ruin must be the high-level personnel of every faction. In terms of high-level power, little Mo Gu was full of confidence when he looked at the people around him. Zhuo Mo turned to look at the other people. Everyone had excited expressions. It was clear that everyone knew the value of the Shen device nucleus. Just this Shen device nucleus would mean that they had not made a wasted trip. Where is the ruin? Zhuo Mo asked. Territory controlled by the Lotus Sutra Temple. It is called Calm Brightness Jie. Lao De Guang said obediently. Zhuo Mo turned around. The steward understood and hurriedly said, the Lotus Sutra Temple does have a Calm Brightness Jie. If we go there, we need to hurry. If Thunder Sound Temple closes the transportation information, it will be troublesome. Close the transportation formation? Zhuo Mo frowned. The steward explained, if we go to Lotus Sutra Temple now, we have to pass through a transportation formation. If that transportation formation is closed, we can get there through other paths, but it will take far longer than a month, unless... Zhuo Mo directly asked, unless what? Unless we go the Black Sea flight route. When he said this, the steward had a terrified expression. Zhuo Mo stilled. He noticed out of the corner of his eyes that Lao De Guang also had a similar expression of terror. Is there something dangerous about that place? Zhuo Mo asked curiously. The steward unconsciously showed his terror on his face, as though he thought of some scary memory. He said in almost a dreamlike fashion, about a decade ago, I went through the Black Sea flight route. At that time, Thunder Sound Temple was in conflict with other sects and closed the transportation formation. Our ship had the 100-leaf heart cloud that we needed to deliver within a month. No matter what, it only blooms for a month. On the 31st day, it will wither and have no value at all. In order to buy this 100-leaf heart cloud, the group had spent almost half of our assets. Our journey had to succeed. Seeing the transportation formation closed, we could only choose the Black Sea flight route. And then? Seng Lianair asked curiously. The steward smiled tragically. At the start, the fleet had more than 200 people. There were only 19 alive at the end. Everyone was astounded. No one had expected that less than a tenth had survived. We knew that the Black Sea flight route is too dangerous, but that business was a matter of life and death for the group. Boss spent a great amount to invite a Fanshu experts to guard us. The steward's flat narration caused everyone's heart to beat rapidly. Were even Fanshu experts unable to protect you? Seng Lianair could not resist speaking again. Fanshu was akin to the martial level of the MO. With a marshal's protection, the fatality rate was still so astounding, the dangers could be imagined. That Fanshu expert did not come out alive. The steward gritted his teeth. His face twisted. The terrifying memories came at him again. His face was ashen pale and his body trembled. Now no one was able to maintain their calm, their expressions changing. A place that could kill Fanshu experts was also a great threat to them as well. Zhuo Mo's eyes lit up. Speed up. Reach the transportation formation at top speed. No one dared to slack off and sped up. The entire group accelerated. After flying for multiple days, when they reached the transportation formation, the formation was being guarded by battalions. The formation was also dark. It was clearly closed. Thunder Sound Temple had predicted that they would go on this path and had prepared. Everyone's face became ugly. Damn it. Chapter 769 Test. Everyone's eyes gathered on Zhuo Mo. How about we move a battalion and destroy them? Eldest Shixiang's tone suddenly became domineering. Lao De Guang shuddered. It really was intimidating to hear these words. That was Thunder Sound Temple, the first of the 9 great Diana sects. Where were these people from? Lao De Guang felt more and more anxious. Zhuo Mo thought and then said, it is not difficult to defeat Thunder Sound Temple, and only that Yang Yuan Hao will be slightly troublesome. But it will not be easy for us after doing that. Eldest Shixiang was just casually mentioning it. He usually did not participate in Mo Cloud C's strategy meetings. He was not interested in these matters, and was obsessed with his sword path. Also, he trusted Zhuo Mo's abilities in this area, Not to mention that Zuomo also had a freak like Lil Mississippi. The reason that he had even spoken up was out of worry for Zuomo's safety. He naturally did not think much of the Black Sea flight route. He believed that as long as he had his sword nothing could impede him. But Zuomo was not the same as him. While he knew that Zuomo was not weaker than himself, and was even stronger in Shin power, he still did not want to see Shidi be placed in danger. Zuomo's gaze swept across the Thunder Sound battalions around the transportation formations. Just like eldest Shixiang had said, other than getting a battalion to come, there really was no good solution. It was not difficult to publicly break through the battalion, but opening a closed transportation formation was a difficult matter. There were only some things that could only be carried out in secret. They could not be seen breaking their ties in public. If they really broke ties publicly with Thunder Sound Temple, then Zuomo's strategy of the relying on the 9 Great Diana sect resisting Tianhuan and Kunlun would be over. While a Shin device raiment was something rare, but Mo Cloud Sea already possessed 3 Shin device raiments, and having one more did not affect Mo Cloud Sea's development and strategy. Thunder Sound Temple was the head of the 9 Great Diana sect, and had great influence amongst them. It could sway the decisions of the 9 Great Diana sects. In a few moments, Zuomo made a decision. The group was quickly noticed by the disciples of Thunder Sound Temple. They had received orders to close the transportation formation and search for suspicious people. This group in front of them was suspicious. Zuomo saw the others about to surround them. He did not want to strain relations with the Thunder Sound Temple and said in a low voice, "Head for the Black Sea flight route." The steward's face paled, but he did not make a sound. He gritted his teeth and flew in the direction of the Black Sea flight route. Lao Deguang's face was completely void of color as he said in a trembling voice, We really have to go the Black Sea flight route? Please no, that is a path to death that. Lao Deguang's voice trailed off in a sob. Everyone ignored him. Wei Xing smiled and said, "After your warning, I'm more interested in this Black Sea flight route." Wei Xing had been worried about any threat to Zuomo's life, but since Zuomo had decided, he stopped all other thoughts. He only decided that all he had to do was protect Shidi. Everyone else had anticipatory expressions. For elites like them that had slaughtered their way out of mountains of corpses, not even the most dangerous path could cause their minds to waver. It aroused their fighting spirit. Fanxiu. Even Fanxiu will die. Lao Deguang wailed. Fanxiu. Everyone exchanged looks and smiled. Even a person as calm and silent as Zhongru couldn't help but grin. What are you crying about? Sung Lianer gave the other a kic. You are a man. Have some courage. The competition among the Mo was fierce and Mo females mostly liked masculine and dominant men. So when Sung Lianer saw Lao Deguang act like this, she immediately felt displeased. Seeing the people around him, Zuomo felt some spirit rise. Some of his worry disappeared. He said with a smile, "We will explore this Black Sea flight route that is said to be peerlessly dangerous, and see just how dangerous it is." The disciples of Thunder Sound Temple gaped. This troop actually flew in the direction of the Black Sea flight route. East Spring Jia was lost. All of Quan Pei's troops were lost. These two events shook the Mo Martial Alliance. If people had just felt threatened before, then the two successive defeats caused them to feel as though there was a blade pointing at their hearts. Bone-aching coldness caused them to have goosebumps. Hai Jinyan finally saw Shang Yusheng arrive. This news caused the higher-ups in the Mo Martial Alliance to feel uplifted. The meet-up of the two great battle generals was like an anchor. It caused them to be filled with hope about the victory of the fight. This war had come so suddenly without any warning. Even the Mo Martial Alliance did not know even now why Mo Cloud Sea had started this war. Theoretically, the two sides did not have any conflicts. In truth, before the war started, the two had many business ties. Why had Mo Cloud Sea started this fight? What was their goal? These riddles caused them to become the reactive party during decision-making. Bihan was also cunning and he did not expose their goal. They could only constantly send more battalions to the front lines. What was fortunate was that Mo Cloud Sea had not started an all-out war. Many battalions had come, but for the Mo Martial Alliance, the only advantage they were sure of was the number of battalions. Also, when they studied carefully, they quickly found that Bihan did have weaknesses. The battalions under his command had been sent to different places. Other than the Tongzi battalion which had been sent to take eastern Spring Jia, the goals of the others were unknown. However, everyone in the Mo Martial Alliance believed that the other battalions were not as strong as Sim battalion. Without realizing it, Bihan was now alone. No matter how strong he was alone. If a lone army like this was surrounded, it was a death sentence. Without the ability to move, without reinforcement, the lone army was like a fish on the chopping block. The Mo Martial Alliance had many battalions. Just with sheer numbers, they could grind Bihan to death. This suddenly discovery caused all of the higher-ups in the Mo Martial Alliance to become excited. Compared to killing a top battle general like Bihan, losing Eastern Spring and the death of Quan Pei Battalion was nothing. Everyone believed that if Hai Jinyun and Shang Yuxing managed to grapple with Bihan, then what waited for Bihan was death on the battlefield. The disappearance of Bihan after defeating Quan Pei did not cause them to be at a loss. Almost everyone thought that after Bihan struck opening blow, he would have to attack them one by one. The merging of forces between the two battle generals allowed the Mo Martial Alliance to gain the strategic initiative. They could force Bihan to fight them together. Right now they only had to advance step by step. They could not give Bihan the chance to make an ambush, and they would not lose this initiative. Hai Jinyun and Shang Yusheng were also full of confidence. Bihan's disappearance in their view implied that Bihan was not confident enough to fight them openly. He wanted to avoid their forces and search for opportunities. They would immediately attack Ma Fan Battalion when Bihan appeared somewhere else to completely cut off Bihan's retreat. If Bihan's retreat was cut off, he would truly become a trapped beast. Any of his struggles would be futile. In front of an ocean of cannon fodder, the elite Sin Battalion would be like a lion tied up, and would fall to a pack of wolves. Yet Bihan was more composed and patient than they imagined. Up until now, they still hadn't found any races of Bihan and Sin Battalion. Hai Jinyan had a fiery temper, but he was not in a rush right now. Shang Yusheng was methodically eating the delicious food in front of him with a serious expression. Shang Yusheng had pale skin. Supposedly, he had always been laughed at by the Mo battalions that admired strength for this trait. He had been called a boy toy. He was also a slow speaker. This was because he had a stuttering ailment in childhood. He had also been laughed at due to this. But no one dared to laugh at him now. Unlike Hai Jinyun's fiery temple, Shang Yusheng was slow and gentle in personality, methodical in everything he did, and appeared as though he would not care if the sky was falling. Due to this, Hai Jinyun would never had a temper when he encountered Shang Yusheng, because no matter how he raged, Shang Yusheng would only smile at him, never argue, and then occasionally say a few words. The two had a good relationship. Unlike Gong Zishi, they were not famous before Shen Power's appearance, and had not been content. Their similar backgrounds and their experiences caused them to be close friends. I don't believe that Bihan cannot see his weakness, Hai Jinyun said gravely. His faint gold face was slightly serious. He definitely has other plans. He should not have made a mistake like this. Even though they appeared to have the strategic initiative, they were not as excited as the higher-ups. The other was not a normal battle general. They were the ones directly feeling the pressure of Bihan, and they were more careful. Shang Yusheng had finished eating this time. He used a cloth to wipe the corner of his mouth before speaking. Of course he would not make a mistake like this. Then what are his intentions? Hai Jinyun asked in a deep voice. I don't know. Shang Yusheng was docile like a goldfish blowing bubbles. Maybe he will head directly for the center, or he is trying to confuse us. Who knows? Hai Jinyun immediately glared and increased his volume. Can you not take this seriously? I am taking this serious. Shang Yusheng spoke so slow that Hai Jinyun almost went crazy. He was slow that every word was said by itself. But there is no use in just taking it serious. He is Bihan. If we try to guess his thoughts, we will lose. Hai Jinyun's furious expression quickly dissipated. The two were close and he immediately understood Shang Yusheng's meaning. You mean that we will be unchanging to face all changes? Yes. Shang Yusheng said. He paused. A cunning light flashed through his eyes before he said slowly. However, we can test him. How? Hai Jinyun's eyes lit up. He felt as though he didn't have any place to expend his energy since he could not find Binan. Ma Fan Battalion. Shang Yusheng slowly said. Hai Jinyun immediately reacted, a smile on his face. Yes. How can Bihan not know the danger of his retreat being cut off? He will definitely have other intentions. Then we will go test him. There are 2 people who are idle. We can let them try. Chapter 770 Green Silk, they've come. Nian Lu said with a depressed expression. 2 Mo marshals, a great army. Aya, I suddenly feel the pressure is great. Laying on his back, head cushioned on his arms, Ma Fan chewed on a stalk of grass as he stared in a daze at the sky. He seemed to not hear what Nian Lu had said. Lei Peng rumbled out. Do you know why you feel like this? Nian Lu stilled and asked curiously, why? Lei Peng used his large fist to beat his steel-like chest and said proudly. Because you are too small. Only a man of steel like myself can remain composed even if Mount Tai collapses. So we can use the words big-chested and brainless to describe you. Nian Lu retaliated. Lei Peng said proudly. The greatest tragedy is to look like a female but be flat-chested. Nian Lu was furious. You look like a female. I am handsome. You have no taste and accuse others. I think that you don't want to leave. Lei Peng curled his pinky and said with a snicker. Come. Let's fight. If you don't, you're a girl. The furious Nian Lu howled. You're a girl. The 2 started to fight without another word. Ma Fan chewed his grass and ignored the 2 fighting furiously around him. He looked idly at the sky with an expression of pleasure. Moments later he stood up and spat out the grass in his mouth. He dusted off his clothes and said lazily, Let's go, stop playing around, we need to work. 2 Mo marshals have come a long way. We need to give them some face. We cannot let them leave disappointed. The surrounding battalion members puffed out their chests. Each of them had excited expressions. There were many people among them that had followed Ma Fan to fight Sukong Temple, but Ma Fan Battalion was much stronger than they were in the past. Looking at his members, Ma Fan smiled freely. He was full of confidence. Bring, bring, bring. Sharp alarms constantly started to sound. This meant that the enemy were within 300 li of them. In the sky, scouts were flying at high speed, some of them landing and others taking off. The defense line made from seal formation started to light up, and the battalion members started to move at high speed. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. The battle was about to start at any moment. The roiling Black Sea was endless. The inky Black Sea water gave off an unique odor that was noxious. Even weirder was that the odor was extremely permeable. Even though they stayed inside the transportation ships, that faint odor could not be avoided. The Black Sea moved relentlessly as though there were monsters moving beneath. The strong wind on the surface was as sharp as blades. Those that were slightly weaker could not leave the ship's cabin. Zhuamo and the others stood at the front of the boat, ignoring the howling wind. Such a strong wind. Sung Lianer sighed in surprise. Her long hair danced in the wind like black snakes. Her floor-length red dress did not move at all, and made her seem weirdly beautiful. It really is rare. Wei Xing nodded. When the wind came near him, it would silently disappear. Zhuamo rubbed his chin and looked around. He murmured to himself, if we can find astral fiends in here, they would be high grade. He motioned towards the sea, and a dragon of water rose out. It flew in front of Zhuamo and turned into a black ball of water. After inspecting the black ball of water, Zhuamo said thoughtfully, this black water is very strange and is full of yin energy. There is nothing in the water, but why is it black? He handed the water ball to Lil Pagoda. Lil Pagoda's head shook like a rattle drum. It clearly disliked the black water. Zhuamo was even more puzzled. Lil Pagoda had digest yin-yang and the 5 elements, meaning it could digest almost everything. Theoretically, no matter what kind of water it was, and because water was within the 5 element, it should be within the boundaries of what Lil Pagoda could absorb. But Lil Pagoda expressed a rare repulsion. This guy was not a picky eater. Something that even a glutton who ate everything did not like. This was interesting. Suddenly, Zhongru opened his eyes, his dried-out finger pointing in a direction. What is that? Everyone looked along Zhongru's finger, and all showed surprise. Not far away in the sky, a thin green strand floating in the air. This green strand was extremely thin and difficult to detect if one did not look closely. The strong wind did not damage it at all. The green strand moved along the wind. No one could name it. Even a fanatic about treasure like Zuemo could not recognize what that green strand really was. Suddenly, Zuemo felt a slight pain on his hand. He looked down and saw Lil Black on his hand furiously waving its antennae. Zuemo stilled, and then had an expression of ecstasy. Treasure. It definitely was some treasure. Fly in that direction. Zuemo promptly shouted at the top of his lungs. Hearing his command, the transportation ship immediately turned and flew in the direction of the green strand. Wei Sheng and the others knew little Mo Gu well. Something that could make little Mo Gu this excited was definitely outstanding. Anticipation flashed across their faces. It did not seem far, yet the ship flew for a full 2 hours. When they flew closer, everyone found that the green strand was even longer than they had imagined. About 7 or 8 li long. It waved in the air like a stalk of seagrass. Just as they were about to go near, the green strand seemed to feel danger. Its slowly swaying body suddenly shook. Everyone felt a green light crescent suddenly released by the green strand and flashed towards the ship. Wei Sheng's eyes lit up from where he was at the front of the ship. The god-killing blood sword appeared in his hand. Great attack. The god-killing blood sword shook, and a red sword energy charged towards the green light crescent at an even faster speed. The green and red energies accurately collided. Boom. It was like the roar of thunder, and a great gust of air spread. The ship shook and was pushed multiple zhang back. Wei Sheng showed slight surprise. He knew just how powerful his sword strike was. That green energy rivaled it. The green string trembled fiercely. Green energies rained down. Wei Sheng's eyes suddenly became the color of blood. Marks of blood formed on the surface of the god-killing blood sword. He raised his face to look at the storm of green energies and howled. A dot of red light expanded, and the sword energy came out of nowhere. The red light was like the leader of a flock of birds. Threads of blood-red sword essence came behind it like a cloud of red birds. In a blink, the pitch of the howl suddenly increased, the flocks of birds turning into an angry tide. The hissing turned into a scalp-numbing roar. The red and the green tides collided. In the sky, countless blinding dots of light lit up like stars shining. It was a beautiful and spectacular scene that made people unconsciously hold their breath. It was even more beautiful in this deathly serenity. A breath later, the enormous wave of sound and air finally swallowed the group. The deck under Wei Sheng's feet turned into powder, but he did not move at all. He seemed to be fixed in the air. On his upraised face, that pair of glowing blood-red eyes were so sharp they seemed to stab through the sky. Zhong Ru's palms were pressed together. A soft Diana chant sounded in everyone's minds. The fleet that had been swaying in the angry black waves seemed to be paralyzed, and then became motionless. What was weirdest was that the roiling black water seemed to have been softly flattened by an invisible hand. The surface of the sea that had been full of furious waves was now as flat as a mirror. Eldest Shixiang's strike caused Zuomo's blood to heat up. He had a desire to fight. Seeing Zhongru also attack, he was not willing to fall behind. Just as he was about to act, he suddenly saw a blurry figure appear next to the green stand, and was astounded. Agui. Unusually, Agui was completely armored with the undying ghost. The gray crystal bone armor covered all of her body, and made her seem like a gray shadow. She appeared like a ghost near the green strand. Yet what she did next made Zuomo jump and fight. She reached towards the green strand. Careful. Zuomo's expression changed drastically. While he did not know what the green strand was, but its malevolent nature had already been displayed. This was something that could rival eldest Shixiang. They had only gone 1 round, it was still extremely dangerous. Agui's action was too rash. In a panic, Zuomo shot towards the green strand and Agui in the sky. The green strand seemed to also detect danger, and trembled fiercely. Several green lights shot towards Agui. Agui's body disappeared again, and all of the green energies missed. Immediately after, Agui's hand suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and grasped the green thread. The green strand froze. Gray mist flowed out of Agui's hand, and the gray color quickly spread along the green strand at a visible rate towards both ends. In a blink, the green strand became half green, half gray. The presence of death seemed to have leaked out of hell. Even from far away, everyone still felt as though they were in a graveyard. The gray energy of death caused everything living in the surroundings to quickly wither. This is... Zuemo was astounded. It was the first time that he had seen this attack from a Gue. The undying Shen power should not have such a thick gray and corroding presence. It was a Gui's undying ghost. Zuemo had studied the undying ghost for a long time, but it was difficult for him to understand many parts. He had never found this death energy before. Gray, death, dissipating void. The feelings that this presence gave Zuemo caused his heart to beat wildly. He was an experienced person. There had been countless fiend souls on the sealed extinction battlefield, but they did not give such a strong feeling of danger like this gray death energy. Zuemo believed that even if it was just a brush of the gray mist, everything below 8th grade would immediately turn to dust and completely dissipate. At this time, a grieving consciousness begging for mercy suddenly appeared in everyone's minds. Everyone was surprised. Zuemo's pupils suddenly expanded. Chapter 771 Treasure-Seeking Sect Leader. These are 3 of my good friends, Fairy Lining, Long Guang, Ruan Yuxian. With their help, I believe that there will be no problems with our trip to the ruins this time. Elder Su said respectfully. The sect leader's gaze swept across the trio. In front of him, the female and 2 males stood together. The female was beautiful with bright eyes, white teeth, and fine pale skin. One of the males was brawny, and had skin as black as coal with bright eyes. The other was dressed like a middle-aged scholar. His hand held a fan, and his eyes flashed with light. The sect leader nodded inwardly. These 3 were strong, especially that middle-aged scholar who was the strongest of the trio. The other was probably just a sliver weaker than himself. Heartleaf Diana Temple had pitifully few experts. Other than himself and Elder Su, the others were not of any renown. But with these 3 strong reinforcements, he couldn't help but have more hope about the trip to the ruins this time. We will trouble you on this trip. If there are any gains on this trip, our sect will have other methods of compensation. The sect leader said seriously. Sect leader is too polite. The one that spoke was Ruan Yuxian. He waved his fan. His voice was light as he said, Brother Su and I have been friends for decades and are like brothers. We will not refuse Brother Zu's request. Also, we cannot turn down the offer that sect leader has made. Lining smiled. Long Guang was motionless like granite. The sect leader laughed upon hearing this. He had a good impression of Ruan Yuxian. He said, Brother Yuan is charming. We are early. Your residences have been arranged. If you have anything you need, please speak. If I am absent, find Elder Su. You are good friends. Do not be courteous. Ruan Yuxian and the others stated their thanks. A disciple quickly ushered the 3 away. When there was only the sect leader and Elder Su left in the hall, the sect leader nodded in praise. You did good regarding this matter. With the help of these 3 people, maybe we can come back with 1 or 2 treasures. Elder Su said respectfully. This is because sect leader is decisive that this matter is successful. These 3 usually are proud. If they did not see sect leader's courage and wisdom, would they have agreed? The sect leader was in a good mood. He said with a smile, I know how hard you worked. Then his expression became stern. He said in a grave voice, This time is an opportunity to us. This will decide if our Heartleaf Diana sect can rise. We must keep this a secret. An imperceptible light flashed through Elder Zu's eyes. He hurriedly said, Sect leader is wise. Zuemo curiously played with the green strand in his hand. The green strand was extremely thin. When the 7-li strand was wrapped around his wrist, it was just a thin line, and appeared like a green bracelet. After the green strand begged for mercy, a Gui's gray mist retreated back into the undying ghost. The green strand docilely landed in Zuemo's hand. After playing with it for a long time, Zuemo still didn't know what it was. It was extremely thin and light, but strong. No matter how hard he pulled, it would not snap. What was most unique was the green crescent energy it could release. This kind of green crescent energy was powerful and unstoppable. It could match Wei Shang's sword energy. While he did not know what it really was, it was clear that this was a rare treasure. Its consciousness which begged for mercy shocked Zhou Mo. This immediately caused him to think of another thing he had, the 3,000 threads of worry. The 3,000 threads of worry could also communicate mentally. Zhou Mo tried to use his consciousness to communicate, but the effect was not visible. Yet when he switched to using Shen power, he seemed to see countless minuscule characters. This scene only happened once. Afterwards, no matter how much Shen power he channeled, it never appeared again. Even though it was just an instant, Zhou Mo still was able to memorize those characters. Zhou Mo then found that the green strand contained faint Shen power that allowed it to channel Shen power. Zhou Mo tried. The green strand could tolerate as much Shen power as he could put in. It had to be said that anything that could hold up under such pure Shen power was a treasure at present. This kind of treasure was suitable to forging Shen device raiments. Zhou Mo also suspected that this green strand was something from the ancient era. Zhou Mo's thoughts moved. A thread of Shen power was channeled in, and the green strand bracelet on his wrist suddenly released a string of green energies. They flew into the Black Sea. The green energy was an offensive Shen technique. While it was not a perfect Shen technique, Zhou Mo was certain of this. When the green strand was completely uncoiled to its 7 li length, and its body floated in the air, an unique feeling came from the green strand on his hand. As its body continued to tremble, it was like an invisible hand that constantly absorbed power from the surroundings. Then through an unique transformation, the power was released as the green energy. Such a strange thing. Zhou Mo couldn't help but tsk in wonder. It was the first time he saw something so unique. The Black Sea flight route had such a dangerous thing. No wonder even Fanshu Xiuzhe would die. It was not hard to understand how a Fanshu Xiuzhe of the past that cultivated Ling power would be killed if they were the least bit careless. Zhou Mo's interest in the Black Sea grew. This unique and unfathomable black-colored sea was endless. Its environment was terrible and filled with danger. But from the opposite viewpoint, if it wasn't for this dangerous environment and those mysterious dangerous beings, this place would have been searched from top to bottom by those large sections. Dangerous things like the green strand that could release Shen techniques were an impossible obstacle to the Xiuzhe of the Ling power era. In other words, this meant that the Black Sea was a treasure trove that had not yet been opened. It was likely that other things like the green strand still existed. Those were all treasures. He also had a treasure seeker like Lil Black, a group of powerful sidekicks. If he missed this chance, it would be a great pity. Lao Deguang, who was restrained by Jinji, was completely docile. There was only one question rolling around in his mind. What were the origins of this terrifying group? He gaped when seeing the power of these people when they fought the Green Strand. He who had been able to earn the moniker, Shadowless Ghost Hand, and was definitely not a country bumpkin. But he only had one feeling now as he watched these people. He truly was an ignorant country bumpkin. When Wei Shang's sword strike appeared, his mind became completely blank. He almost suffocated under the pressure. Even now, when he thought of that astounding blow, his heart couldn't help but tremble. Kunlun. The first thought through his mind was that only Kunlun had such terrifying sword xiao. Yet what puzzled him was Zhong Ru's shout. He lived in the 9 great Diana sects, and was as familiar as one could be with the Diana cultivation. He knew the name of every Diana xiao that was slightly famous. When did such a great Diana xiao appear? After living so long in the 9 great Diana sects, just his shout was enough to prove that this withered man was unfathomably powerful. No matter how hard he thought, he could not find this person. Had such a great Diana xiao just appeared out of nowhere? As to that brute force woman that had knocked him unconscious, he only had one thought. How fortunate he had not struggled back then. Lao Deguang carefully inspected the fleet. He found that all of the people who had not participated had calm expressions and maintained their calm from beginning to end during the encounter. They appeared to be experts. Thinking about his prideful expression when he had given his nickname, Lao Deguang felt embarrassed. Any of the people who had fought was enough to make the 9 great Diana sects shake. Now a whole group had appeared. He didn't know to describe them. In any case, his thoughts of fleeing immediately dissipated. He did not feel that he could escape from this group of freaks with his measly skills. Alright. He had never thought there would be a day that he would admit his skills were measly. Crying on the inside, Lao Deguang had to consider an even more pragmatic question. How could he keep himself alive while in the hands of these freaks? A person who could receive the name, Shadowless Ghost Hand, might not be strong, but his mind was not lacking. Did these people come for the ruins from the start? The idea flashed through his mind and he grabbed it. Such a group of freakishly powerful people was enough to destroy smaller sections. They would not appear at the 9 Great Diana sects without any reason. The more he thought, the more he felt this was right. This definitely was the reason. He felt slightly reassured. To speak of nothing else, he believed not many could compare to him in terms of information. He was still valuable to this group. As long as he was valuable, he would have a chance of staying alive. Lao Deguang decided to find a chance to display his value. He had been secretly gathering intelligence on the ruins. They had not questioned him in detail last time, and he had kept many secrets. Come ask me. Come ask me. I have a lot of information. Lao Deguang screamed inside. 1 day passed, 2 days, 3 days. This group of people seemed to forget him. No one paid any attention to him. Lao Deguang felt puzzled. Had these people not come for the ruins? He found that Swordsmanship seemed to be search for something on the Black Sea every day. Was their goal the Black Sea flying route? The pitiful Lao Deguang would never expect that the fleet with Swordsmanship as its leader had entered a state of treasure hunting. Swordsmanship's greedy and desirous gaze wanted to sweep through all of the Black Sea. If he could find a few more treasures like the Green Strand, maybe he could gather the materials to forge a Shun device raiment. Lil Black's antennae finally started to wave furiously in one direction. Cheers immediately sounded through the entire fleet. Everyone was spirited. Even a person as calm as Zhongru became excited. The fleet quickly flew in the direction pointed out by Lil Black. Chapter 772. Glittering the dark night was illuminated by the lights of the spells and Shun techniques. They collided in the air like fireworks, giving off great explosions that made people's ears hurt. Waves of air twisted the night, and everything in view seemed to be twisted. Inside the Jinji, everyone had an excited expression. Their faces were twisted, tendons bulging as they focused. Pay attention. Pay attention. First group, pay attention to cutting off the enemy's left flank. Second group, control your Shun power. Do not fight too strongly. Pay attention to shifts. Fourth and fifth Jinji group, did you eat? Why are your attacks so weak? Attack at full power. I won't forgive you if you let even one escape. Ma Fan calmly observed the battlefield. His orders flowed into every corner of the Jinji defense line. Among Mo Cloud Sea's battle generals, there were several that were skilled in defense such as Shu Long's guard camp and Tang Fei's Tongzi battalion. Yet Ma Fan was the strangest one among them. He was the battle general most skilled in Jinji battle defense. Because he had successfully stopped Su Kong Temple's battalions in the past which unearthed Ma Fan's talent in defense, he had then been sent to Orchid Home Jia, where he defended against Tian Huan's Gongye Xiaorong by relying on the Jinji forts. He had developed a great interest in how to use the seal formations in Jinji. Formations and Jinji were one of Mo Cloud Sea's developmental focuses. Zhuomo's turtle style had influenced them deeply. The interested Ma Fan spent a great amount of time in Golden Crow Cloud Island to study Jinji and formations. Any formation defense line in his hands would have astounding power. He was familiar with the weakness and strengths of every kind of seal formation, and could use them. Also, his experiences as part of the offensive corps gave him a good understanding on the large-scale strategy of how to use seals in Jinji. His second-in-command, Nian Lu, was skilled in calculation and aided him greatly. Lei Peng was the head of the axe hidden in the turtle shell. The battlefield was silently changing. This kind of change was subtle, and almost no one detected it among the chaotic battlefield. But Ma Fan detected it. The two enemy battalions were not in sync, and an opening in their formation had begun to appear. Ma Fan's eyes suddenly lit up. His voice unconsciously increased, and his orders became brisk. First crux, attack at full power. Third group, delay your enemies. Seventh group, Weaken your attacks, draw them in. Third group, sixth group, pay attention, prepare to kill. The members under his command were familiar with his change. Everyone knew that when Darren's orders became short, it meant that the crucial moment in the battle had come. Everyone felt their minds become alert, and the formation defense line immediately changed. However, it was also difficult to detect this change among the storm of spells. Waiting for his orders, Lei Peng was completely armored. The Mo Cloudshin equipment covering all of his large and brawny body. He had a golden crystal sword in his hand. He appeared like a giant stepping out of a legend as he gave off a bloodthirsty and savage presence. Beside him, 200 elites were also fully armored and stood silently. He was prepared to fight. They've been drawn in. Big Peng kill. Lei Peng's eyes suddenly grew bright, his presence increasing. He lifted the heavy gold crystal sword as though it was nothing and changed towards the formation defense line like a furious rhino. Kill. The 200 elite moved at the same time and howled together. Kill. The troops were like a sharp and heavy axe that was swung in an overhead blow at the prey that was caught in a net. The battalion that had been allowed in had never expected enemies to come charging out of the enemy defense line. Caught off guard, blood and flesh flew. Lei Peng was like an ancient monster, unstoppable as he charged every which way. The Shen equipment he wore had been designed and forged according to his strengths. It only had one use, to increase Lei Peng's power fivefold. Lei Peng was naturally endowed with astounding strength, and it became even greater after Mo matrices were engraved. Zui Mo had switched out the spell he cultivated into a Mo skill a long time ago. After he used a Mo embryo, he managed to cultivate a power-type Mo physique that increased his strength by multiple times again. Zui Mo was determined for him to become a power type. The Lei Peng of the past had a terrifying amount of strength, but after he cultivated the Mo Cloudshin methodology, Lei Peng's strength went up another level. Lei Peng's Shin power was the simplest, most direct, crudest, roughest and purest of power. He had a door-sized golden crystal sword in his hand. When he started to swing it, no one was able to stop his attack. He did not like using stabs. In his hand, the golden crystal sword was like a thick horse-chopping saber. What he liked to do most was chop. Usually, when his blow fell, the enemy, rider and steed, would be split in two. When he was really in his state, he would even use the sword like a metal staff, slapping and whipping. Anyone that was touched would fly out as though they were hit by a rhino. A large part of their body strangely caved in, as they bled for all orifices. Clang. Lei Peng's hand shook. For the first time since the battle started, someone stopped his sword. His eyes bled red. He saw the person that stopped him. It was one of the Mo marshals. This time was when Lei Peng's fighting spirit was at its height. Even if the other was a Mo marshal, he did not feel fear. With an angry howl, he swung the golden crystal sword up, and swung at the other, throwing himself behind the sword. Good attack. The Mo marshal snorted. The spear in his hand suddenly turned bright silver, an extremely blinding point of light suddenly appearing in front of Lei Peng's eyes. This dot of silver energy came quickly like lightning. Everyone who was within 10 li was pulled towards this spear. Lei Peng's surrounding soldiers seemed to have a feeling that this dot of silver light had a strange magnetic force. Their bodies seemed to be flying uncontrollably towards the dot of silver like moths to a flame. A feeling of extreme danger suddenly took over their minds. They paled in shock. At this time, a wild angry shout exploded in their ears. Lei Peng's eyes were wide in anger, his Shen equipment flashing with bright red light. Every drop of power in every Mo matrix on his body, every muscle, bone and sinew, gathered on the golden crystal sword in his hand. It was a power pure and without any finesse. Only power. Boom. A thick drum-like sound echoed, like muffled thunder deep within the clouds. This could be heard by everyone within 100 li. A shocking unstoppable wave of air swept in all directions like a wall of iron. All of the seal formations and Jinji within 5 li were destroyed. Those with slower reactions had to face the shockwave of air head-on, and were immediately wounded. Those smarter let themselves fly out with the wave of air. There was nothing left within 5 li. The golden crystal sword was completely shattered. Lei Peng was thrown out like a sandbag. His shun equipment was cracked all over, blood streaming out. He was covered in blood. At the place where the fight had been, the MO Marshal stood holding the spear, motionless. The entire battlefield was silent. Everyone was stunned by this astounding collision. Suddenly, with a snap, a fragment fell from the long spear to the ground. This seemed to be a signal. Crack, the entire spear crumbled. The MO Marshal was motionless as though he was made from stone. Everyone looked uncertainly at the MO Marshal, their hearts in their throat. At this time, the MO Marshal fell in crashing with a boom. Darren. Countless MO soldiers wailed in sorrow and disbelief. Yet the MO Marshal who had fallen down did not respond. Ha 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 ha. Cough. Lei Peng struggled up as he laughed wildly. He suddenly tore off the shattered shin equipment he wore. People found out their shock that Lei Peng was covered in blood. They were even able to see the wounds that were seeping blood all over his body. Lei Peng seemed to not notice them. He took out a new set of shun equipment and put it on, ignoring the blood flowing out of him. Then he took out a large axe from his ring that was the size of a door. Holding the large axe, blood pooling under his feet, Lei Peng walked forward. He suddenly raised the axe in his hand and shouted like a wild beast, "Kill!" Inside the seal formation, Nian Lu wiped away cold sweat. This guy's gone crazy today. Ma Fan frowned. He was the strongest and he saw the most. The MO Marshal had been overconfident and hadn't expected that someone would take the path of only pursuing strength, and even managed to reach such a level. Lei Peng's attack had gathered all of his strength. Even Boss, who was famed for his strength, would not choose to face it head-on. Power defeating all methods. Lei Peng was what the phrase referred to. In terms of cultivation and skill, the MO Marshal was much greater than Lei Peng. Yet he chose to fight Lei Peng in strength. Wasn't that just looking for death? Ma Fan shook his head. He knew what the MO Marshal had intended. The MO Marshal had thought to increase morale through this action, but hadn't expected to meet such an unreasonable person like Lei Peng. Have him withdraw, Ma Fan said unquestionably. There was a 5-li opening in the seal formation Jinji. This meant that the previous arrangements had to be adjusted. A damaged defense line meant more weaknesses, but there was nothing to be done about it. High-level experts were enough to affect the state of a battle. Also, the enemy had lost a MO Marshal. In terms of damage inflicted, they had benefited greatly. The enemy had not just lost a MO Marshal. With the way that the MO fought, this meant that when the MO Marshal died, the offensive ability of the battalion would decrease precipitously. The death of a MO Marshal was like losing a flank, but in addition what it shook was morale. Morale was something intangible, but of crucial importance to victory or defeat. The more intense the battle, the greater its effects. Even if the enemy still had one more MO Marshal, Ma Fan perceptively detected that the enemy morale was now low and the other MO Marshal was stunned by the results of this battle. He did not respond immediately. The enemy was in a short burst of chaos. Opportunity. Ma Fan unhesitatingly adjusted his orders. The chaotic MO battalions immediately were inundated with strong attacks. When the remaining MO Marshal reacted, he found that the enemy had grabbed hold of his battalion. If they wanted to retreat, the fatalities would be terrifying. Damn it. How could it be like this? His complexion turned gray. Chapter 773. Enemy encounter. After flying for a while, sounds of intense fighting could be heard from in front of them. Everyone was experienced in battle, and could clearly recognize the sound of talisman attacks within. The entire fleet went on their guard. Were other people like them, coming to explore this treasure trove? From the distance of the sound, the other was hundreds of li away. If it wasn't for the vast and open sea surface, the direction of the wind, and their sensitive hearing, they might not have detected it. The fleet was fast and the hundreds of li would be traveled in a few moments. The guards in the fleet were on their high alert and prepared to fight. When Zhuo Mo and the others arrived and saw the situation, they were astonished. A mountainous one-eyed octopus was half exposed in the water. Several Xiozha were furiously attacking the octopus. Is this really an octopus? Zhuo Mo waved at the enormous body of the octopus and swallowed. Just the portion of the octopus that was out of the water was over 200 zhang. Those xiuzha around it were small like flies in comparison. Just the part of the body that was exposed to the air was already so large. The enormity of its entire body could be imagined. Anyone who faced such an enormous monster couldn't help but inhale and feel as though it was an unwinnable battle. How long has it lived to grow so large? Sung Lianer had an expression of awe. Having growing up in the Mo territories, she had seen countless dangerous beings, but it was the first time she was seeing one so large. Azwa, be careful, this octopus is at least tens of thousand years old. Weiss warning caused Zwamos to shudder. Tens of thousands years old. 1,000-year tortoises, 10,000-year-old turtles. How come it is older than a turtle? Zwamo's little heart shook. Any kind of being, if they lived for thousands of years, would become powerful. Those that lived for tens of thousands of years, and in such a terrible environment like the Black Sea. This guy's strength. Leave before it takes notice of you. Any being that has survived for tens of thousands of years will match you in intelligence. Pu Yao also warned. Pu and Weiss' opinions were in rare agreement, and Zwa immediately felt the urge to retreat. He liked treasure, but he would not gamble with his life. Also, the chances of victory appeared pitiful. The attacks of the xiuzha did not cause any reaction when they landed on the octopus. The octopus had a layer of gleaming sticky fluid. When talismans hit it, they were deflected or they would glance off. Some would even be destroyed against it. Such a dangerous being should not be provoked. Suddenly, Wei Xing lowered his voice and said murderously, "Shitty, those seem like Kuan-Luan sword xiao." Kuan-Luan. Zwamo's body shook. His attention had all been on the octopus, and upon close inspection, he found that those people were Kuan-Luan sword Ziwi. Zwamo's eyes suddenly became tinged with blood. Their grudge with Kuan-Luan was irreconcilable. "Xixiang, this octopus is too strong. We cannot do anything to it." His voice was panicked. They had attacked this octopus for a full 2 hours, and just left a few minor wounds on its body. Xiao Rujian was also slightly panicked inside. But he knew that he could not panic. He forced his expression to remain calm. "Everyone, do not panic. Let's try other things. This is soul-luring fragrance. A treasure that I begged Master for a long time in order to obtain. Even the strongest monster, if it is afflicted with the soul-luring fragrance, will not recover its senses for 6 hours." Yu Ming said helplessly, "I tried everything that could be done, they are useless." Xiao Rujian gritted his teeth. He turned to say to another Shi, "And hi, didn't your master leave you 100 fiend soul-destroying sword pill? Use that." And Hai had a pained expression. However, he had already done everything else that he could. Xiao Xixiang's soul-luring fragrance was extremely valuable, and if they wasted this opportunity, they would definitely regret it. This octopus was at least 10,000 years old, and its entire body was treasure. All right. Once Hai made a decision, he did not hesitate. A yellow bead the size of a bean appeared on his hand. The bead flashed with color, and a faint layer of mist surrounded it when it was taken out. Xiao Hai and the others became alert. They were knowledgeable. The 100 fiend soul-destroying sword pill of their sect was a secret method. The number of elders with the power to forge this could be counted using the fingers. That faint layer of mist was actually the movement of countless ice-cold sword essences. And Hai's face flushed, the spell on his hand changing. He shouted clearly, "Go!" The sword pill turned into an imperceptible light that entered the body of the octopus. The octopus, who had remained unresponsive until now, finally reacted. It furiously twisted its body, shaking the water. Its enormous body contained endless power. Xiao Rujian and the other had expressions of joy. They knew that this was the 100 fiend soul-destroying sword pill destroying the life inside the octopus. The forging process of the 100 fiend soul-destroying sword pill was extremely cruel. It needed to take the savage and hateful thoughts of Ling beasts raised. Then using an Yin method it was forged into sword essence and sealed within the pill. It would destroy the soul of the enemy when used, a terrifying weapon. Xiao Rujian and the others hurriedly flew away to avoid being struck by the octopus. If they were whipped by such a large body, their bones might be crushed. After a whole hour, the octopus thrashing quieted. Xiao Hai and the others had joyful expressions. Then they quickly found that they were still unable to cut open the body of the octopus. Also, the attacks they had used previously had used up much of their power. That sticky fluid on it is strange, Izzy warned. At this time, Anhai suddenly noticed the fleet in the distance. His expression changed slightly and he said, Xixiang. Other people have come. Xiao Rujian and the others stilled. The dangerous reputation of the Black Sea flight route was known far and wide that there was basically none who dared to come. If it was not for their wealth of talismans, and the increase in their strength in the last recent while, Xiao Rujian and the others would not dare to rashly go into the Black Sea. Xiao Rujian was the leader and organizer of this Black Sea trip. He had read in the memoirs of a Kunlun elder about the dangers in the Black Sea flight route. It had mentioned that the other had encountered an octopus that had survived for at least tens of thousands of years. Xiao Rujian was a smart and attentive person. He noted down the information, and then started to gather and investigate the materials available on the Black Sea flight route. When he started to cultivate Shen power, and thought back to the records, he had a daring idea. That octopus might be a being from the ancient era. Ancient and dangerous beings cultivated Shen power, which was so powerful it was not something that Ling power and Sword Xiu could defeat. He continued to research, which seemed to support his finding. There were some dangerous beings with Shen power which lived in the Black Sea. As his Shen power increased, Xiao Rujian realized that the chance of this was great. For Sword Xiu that cultivated Ling power, it was a place of certain death, but for the present group that cultivated Shen power, it was a land of treasure. He slowly prepared, found fellow disciples with the same intentions as him, and arranged the trip as well as the supplies they needed to advance another level in power. After preparing all of this, Xiao Rujian finally embarked on the trip to the Black Sea. According to information in the memoirs of the elder, Xiao Rujian's group quickly found that terrifying octopus tens of thousands of years. Everything after had proceeded smoothly, and Xiao Rujian's soul-luring fragrance was especially effective, yet what happened next was like throwing a bucket of cold water on the happy faces of everyone there. They were unable to do anything against this octopus that had stopped fighting back. They could not do anything to it or fatally injure it. The soul-luring crystal was only effective for 6 hours. After the 6 hours passed, they could only flee. The fiend soul-destroying sword pill made them happy for a moment, but then they found that they were no better off than before. At this time, they found Zuomo's group. Xiao Rujian's mind moved. He lowered his voice. This is an opportunity. We will trick them into helping us deal with the octopus. He then asked in a low voice, Is Shimmy's circular fiend sword formation still here? He imperceptibly nodded. Here. Later, pay attention to my finger. If my pinky curls, Shimmy, immediately activate the circular fiend sword formation to trap them. The circular fiend sword formation is the masterpiece of He Shu Ha. That last ha came from Xiao Rujian's mouth murderously. And Wei said after a moment of silence, That is not very good. Xiao Rujian knew if he could not persuade everyone, this would fail. He thought and then said, Then let's trap them first. After we finish, we will let them out and give them something in return. The other people's expressions eased and they nodded in agreement. Everyone knows the state of our Kunlun right now. This octopus is of crucial importance to the sect. Do not be soft-hearted at this time. Do not underestimate them. To be able to travel the Black Sea flight route they must be capable. Xiao Rujian warned them. Xixiang is right. We will listen to Xixiang. Everyone thought of the recent sacrifices that countless elders had made with their lives, and felt ashamed. They had been soft-hearted about such an important matter. Seeing everyone in consensus, Xiao Rujian sighed in relief. He turned around, and there was a friendly smile on his face. He raised his voice to shout. Friend, where are you from? Kunlun disciple Xiao Rujian greets you. This one has encountered some trouble here. Will you be able to help? Kunlun will give you great thanks. Xiao Rujian was friendly, but not servile. He believed that most people would give him some face based on the name of Kunlun. They also believed that anyone that dared to go against Kunlun had not been born yet. As expected, the other immediately responded. We have admired Kunlun for many years. Seeing everyone today, you really have the mannerisms of a famed sect. It is our honor to make your acquaintance. You are too polite, do not mention any thanks. As they spoke, the fleet flew near Xiao Rujian's group. Xiao Rujian's gaze swept the people on the ships, and found that there was a heterogeneous group of people. He relaxed slightly and his smile grew. Chapter 774 Shock What? Hai Jinyan abruptly stood up with shock and fury on his face. His voice became sharp and ear-piercing. Defeated? You say they were defeated? Two MO marshals fighting a guy that no one even knew the name of before, and they were defeated? Hai Jinyan became more excited as he spoke, his gold face full of murderousness. His eyes were cold and his tone became cruel and emotionless. Where are they? Have them come see me. Hai Jinyan and Shang Yusheng were responsible for leading this campaign. They could order anyone on the front lines of the MO Martial Alliance, and they could also punish anyone. Two MO marshals leading two full battalions to fight a single battalion that didn't even have a top battle general. Even if the other had the seal formation defense line, their advantage was absolute. Hai Jinyan was filled with murderousness. The two MO marshals had no reason to be defeated. In his view, there were only two reasons that they would lose with such a great advantage. One was because their forces were cowardly, the other because they were useless. Neither was a reason he could tolerate. The MO colonel bent his head and said with a hint of grief, "The two Darren died in battle." Hai Jinyan's expression froze on his face. At the side, Shang Yusheng also had a surprised expression. While the times had changed, and MO marshals were not as valuable as before, it was still rare for MO marshals to die in battle. The Shen era had just started, and there were just a rare few outstanding geniuses that had caught up to the last era's power. The great majority of people were still struggling at the lower levels. A thin camel was still bigger than a horse. While MO marshals' position had fallen from being the best fighters to being first-class fighters, they were still strong. Died in combat, that meant they had not retreated. The death of any MO marshal in combat could not be dismissed. They were not surprised by Quan Pei's death because his opponent had been Bihan. MO marshals did not have the ability to fight back a top battle general. But Ma Fan, who was he? This person was not among the 10 great generals of the Xiuzha world. And the amount of intelligence they had about this person was pitifully small. They only knew he was skilled in defense and had followed Zhua Mo for a long time. They didn't know anything else. Was the Ma Fan battalion a decoy? And the one in charge was actually Gong Sun Cha? Even now, Hai Jinyan could not believe this. Shang Yusheng suddenly spoke, his tone as slow as usual. Describe the events in detail. Yes. They formed a seal formation defense line, and Ma Fan battalion went on the defensive relying on that. The two Darren discussed and thought that we had the advantage, so they attacked. Because the enemy battalion did not have many people, the two Darren chose 6 positions to attack, each good for breakthroughs to put pressure on the enemy. When the battle started, we quickly gained the upper hand. However, the enemy was hardy and the fighting was intense. This lucky survivor showed sorrow, his tone deep. After about an hour, the battle proceeded about the same as any offensive on a city. The two Darren thought that the enemy might have used up its energy and decided to put on more pressure. At this time, the other finally showed a weakness. Yu Darren is the strongest in breakthrough and he did not hesitate to lead his elites to charge in. No one expected that it was the enemy's trap. There were demons here. They were truly demons. The MO colonel's tone became excited, his lips trembling, his body shuddering and his eyes filled with shock. Hai Jinyu and Shang Yusheng exchanged a look. Both of them felt intimidated. Calm down. Hai Jinyan shouted sternly. The MO colonel seemed to wake up, and had an ashamed expression. However, his voice still trembled. There was an elite troop waiting in the trap. When Yu Darren and the others charged in, this elite force suddenly charged out. The soldier at the front could not be stopped. He was ferocious, and no one could stop even one of his attacks. Yu Darren found the situation was dangerous, and went out to intercept him. The two met in a single clash. The MO colonel's body trembled even more violently. And then? Hai Jinyan couldn't help asking. And then Yu Darren died. 2 streams of tears fell from the MO colonel's eyes. Hai Jinyan, and Shang Yuxing changed expression. The two exchanged a look and saw the shock in each other's eyes. To kill a MO marshal with one attack, what kind of strength would it take? They had never thought that someone would cultivate such a freakish path. Was that person wounded? Shang Yuxing couldn't resist asking. The MO colonel worked through his sorrow and tried to think back. That person was also injured, and covered in blood. However, this person was courageous and strong. He did not retreat. He changed his Shen equipment, and continued to fight. When Darren died, everyone's morale plummeted. The battlefield was chaotic, and most of us were quickly killed. Then Darren? How did he die? Hai Jinyan asked urgently. The death of Darren was a great shock to Darren. The enemy was very strong and stuck themselves to Darren's battalion. Darren's battalion seemed to be stuck in a bog and could not escape. The situation was chaotic at the time, and our battalion was scattered. No one fully knows what happened. I heard an enormous explosion, and then realized that Darren most likely. Hai Jinyan and Shang Yuxing sank into silence. The hall was so quiet that the drop of a pin on the ground could be heard. What the MO colonel had described was an unparalleled shock to the two. The two of them were in great turmoil. One Ma Fan was so strong. Then what about the other battalions in Bihan's command? They found now that they had made a grave mistake. They had kept their eyes on Bihan and dismissed the other battalions under his command. A person's reputation, a tree's shadow, the halo of Bihan being a top battle general had masked the strength of the other people. Psychologically and strategically, the MO Martial Alliance had focused all of their power on Bihan. If Bihan's other battalions had such power, then the two of them had a bad feeling. Hai Jinyun, Shang Yusheng, and Bihan as well as others probably would never have thought that their battle was being observed by so many important people. MO Cloud Sea was small but it was strong. They had not made any great moves in the last few years, and their suddenly move this time naturally attracted the attention of many factions. The intelligence on Ma Fan's battle immediately ended up in the hands of the major factions through a number of channels. Gongye Xiaorong carefully read the report. His calm expression changed slightly. Shi Xiang, what do you think? Li Xian'er had been paying attention all this time to Gongye Xiaorong's expression. Gongye Xiaorong's return had caused a significant ripple, but compared to his glory days of the past, no one had much interest in someone that had been defeated. But inside Tianhuan, Gongye Xiaorong's status had not changed at all. Both the sect leader and Li Xian'er, the future sect leader, could see that the setback this time had caused Gongye Xiaorong to transform. When Gongye Xiaorong led the remains of his battalion across mountains and oceans, through countless difficult obstacles to return to Tianhuan, the sect leader only said, Xiaorong's accomplishment will be limitless. Gongye Xiaorong seemed to be a completely different person. There was none of his past pride, arrogance, and imperiousness. He was low-key and tolerant, uncaring of the gossip within the sect. He also became unprecedentedly hardworking. He mastered Shen power at an astounding speed, and adjusted to fighting with Shen power. The sect leader's trust in him did not decrease at all. He still had great authority. He usually stayed in the sect, and silently started to rebuild his battalion. With the remains of his past battalion as the skeleton, a completely new battalion took form as he cultivated daily. Li Xian'er saw everything. She knew that Xiaorong Shixiang only needed a chance for the world to see him again. A chance for him to make his way back into the top battle general rankings. He was already prepared. So when he saw the slight surprise on Xiaorong Shixiang's face, she was slightly surprised. Xiaorong Shixiang had become low-key and humble in these years, and was a composed person, giving the impression nothing could cause him to change expression. The surprise flashed across Gongye Xiaorong's face before his expression recovered. He has become stronger. Stronger? Li Xian'er paused. I fought against him in the past. Gongye Xiaorong's voice was still cock. He is much stronger now. Compared to Shi Xiang? Li Xian'er deliberately asked. Gongye Xiaorong smiled, but did not speak. Shi Xiang, tell me. Li Xiao'er grabbed Gongye Xiaorong's sleeve and furiously shook it. The two had grown up together, and were like siblings. Affection and helplessness flashed across Gongye Xiaorong's face. At the same time, A burning fighting spirit flashed through his eyes. He said calmly, Gongsun Cha is really strong. Li Xian'er was puzzled. They were clearly talking about Ma Fan. Why was Shi Xiang talking about Gongsun Cha? Ma Fan and the other battle generals were taught by Gongsun Cha. This is why I say that Gongsun Cha is strong. Gongye Xiaorong explained. No one can compare to Gongsun Cha in this, not even Xuedong. Gongsun Cha is equal to 2 top battle generals. Li Xian'er saw Shi Xiang admired Gongsun Cha so much and pouted. Then why is his ranking lower than Xuedong? At this level, the difference between the two is minuscule. Unless they fight, no one knows who will win. Even if they fight, there are many factors affecting victory and defeat that are beyond the control of people. There is no meaning in stronger or weaker. Battle generals are of strategic value. However, Gongsun Cha is strong in that he is skilled in training battle generals. These battle generals might not become top battle generals, but they can become first-class battle generals. For example, this Ma Fan. With this strength he is definitely first-class. First-class battle generals are not so attention-catching as top battle generals, but for a top battle general, the one with more first-class battle generals under their command will have more of an advantage, and have more tactics to choose from. Look, other than Ma Fan he has trained many others, for example, Xu Long, Tang Fei, Shi Dong and Jia Ge. These are all first-class battle generals. This is like playing with cards. As you play, without realizing it, his hand of bad cards has become a hand of good cards. This is what is terrifying about him. Gongye Xiaorong said meaningfully. Chapter 775, Act. The fleet quickly flew next to the big octopus under Zuomo's orders. Hey, is this guy asleep? Zuomo pretended to be curious and drooled as he came close. A hint of dislike flashed through the eyes of He Zi and the others. They were from large sects, and instinctively disliked the common presence that Zuomo had. Xiao Rujian did not show any of disdain and said with a smile, We have stunned it, and its senses are blocked. However, this guy has thick skin, please help us. We will thank you well after this. We Kunlun are honest, do not worry. Stunned. Zuomo's expression was curious but slightly worried. Will it suddenly wake up? Such a big guy, if it wakes up, none of us will be able to escape. Xiao Ruhai felt pressed for time, but did not show it. He knew that he had to ease these people's worries for them to work hard. He explained, Our sect's soul-luring fragrance can seal the senses any monster no matter how strong it is, much less this octopus. We have at least 4 more hours. In these 4 hours it definitely will not wake up. So powerful. Zuomo had a shocked expression. Its soul-luring fragrance. Pu Yao was familiar with his past opponent. Maybe not 4 hours, but definitely 2. Receiving the information he wanted, Zuomo's smile became even warmer. Alright, let's start. Xiao Rujian was overjoyed and said loudly, Everyone, let's go together. After this, no one will leave with empty hands. Zuomo pushed up his sleeves, and raised his arms as he shouted like a hoodlum. Brother, it's our honor that a large sect like Kunlun is paying attention to us. If we don't work our hardest, we will disappoint these friends from Kunlun. Xiao Rujian and the others had small smiles. This person had a low-class presence, but he was perceptive and knew his own measure. He was filled with respect towards Kunlun. Xiao Rujian elegantly bowed. This one will first thank you, brothers. If you need our aid in the future, please speak. Zuomo laughed. Haha, Kunlun friends give us so much face, we cannot falter. Brothers, start. Xiao Rujian finally sighed in relief. They were finally going to start. Yet before he could react, a sharp coldness locked him in place without any warning. What was going on? He was astounded. The sharp killing intent burned as though he was within a smelting cauldron. The person who had looked like a low-class hoodlum seemed to completely change. His hand flashed with a golden energy that brimmed with murderousness. Damn it. They had been fooled. His head rang, but he reacted quickly. He was furious. You dare. The flying sword in his hand stabbed towards the other like lightning. In such an emergency, he did not spare any energy. A green sword energy lit up, and the space around him rippled and twisted. Shin power. The green sword energy contained pure Shen power. The Kunlun sword essence with Shen power was even more powerful, more varied, and harder to predict. Xiao Rujian was like an unpredictable shadow that almost broke free of Zuomo's presence lock. Zuomo's eyes lit up with threads of golden scripts. His Sun Shen power erupted, and the Shen technique was immediately completed in his hand. Sun Shen Thorn. A blinding spike of light like a ray of the sun flew out of his hand and shot at Xiao Rujian. The golden light accurately collided with Xiao Rujian's sword energy. Bam! The green sword energy was shattered like glass and turned into blue fragments. The fine fragments formed a little twister in the air, but did not affect the spike of light at all. The light spike was a bit dimmer, but it still flew at an astounding pace towards Xiao Rujian. Xiao Rujian paled. How was it possible? How was it possible? Everyone that happened in front of him made him almost unable to believe his eyes. His sword energy had been so easily shattered by the enemy. In Kunlun that was full of geniuses, Xiao Rujian had always been one of the top. He had a glorious history in the sect competitions. But there was no time to think in this situation. He was a decisive person. He knew that this was a time of life and death, and bit into his tongue. Blood that contained Shen power spread through his mouth. His eye flashed with a layer of green energy. The sword scripture he cultivated was Kunlun's 3 pure sword scripture. This sword scripture had not been important in the past, but in the process of being adapted for Shen power, the elders found to their shock that this minor sword scripture was actually very suited to Shen power. The status of 3 pure sword scripture rose. Many of Kunlun's disciples now cultivated this sword scripture. Xiao Ruhai was one of the leaders. He spent large amounts of time and energy on cultivating this sword scripture. He became the disciple that was publicly thought of having the most skill with 3 pure sword scripture. Vast Shen power flooded through his body. He felt he was unprecedentedly powerful. This technique risked his life, but was able to increase his power in the short term. But the harm would be significant. Even if he won, he would have to rest and recuperate for at least half a year. Xiao Rujian had learned this move long ago, but had never used it. Resting for half a year versus losing his life, without needing to think, he knew what to choose. His mind was unprecedentedly focused. He pushed away all stray thoughts. He did not ask who these people really were, or why they had suddenly attacked. There was only that golden thorn in his eyes, the Sun Shen thorn. The lightning-fast Sun Shen thorn became extremely slow in his eyes. He could see every detail. The Sun Shen thorn was unlike their sword energies. It was so dense it was tangible, seeming to be made from gold. The thorn was covered in fine exquisite patterns, and the ancient sun diagrams could be seen. The clearer he saw it, the more he could feel the great power it contained. How was the other able to do this? He lost some of his focus. Making Shen power tangible was one of the more common skills right now. But this Sun Shen thorn that seemed to be masterfully carved showed that the enemy's level at manifestation was far greater than he could imagine. His mind was clear. In just an instant, he knew that there was an uncrossable gap between himself and the enemy. Yet the vast power in his body broke free like a vicious beast. Strong fighting spirit rose from deep within. His death would not be a waste if he fought such a strong opponent. The terror deep in his eyes disappeared. Xiao Rujian suddenly shouted angrily. He released his restraint over the Shen power in his body. The unrestrained Shen power rampaged left and right in his body, like a caged tiger. Xiao Rujian's body seemed to be on fire. The Shen power that existed in every inch of his body was ignited and furiously burned. A layer of angry green energy appeared on the flying sword on his hand. It flickered like a green flame. Xiao Rujian's eyes were deep like the ocean. He raised the flying sword covered in green flames and stabbed. The green Shen power flaring around the sword undulated in ripples as it traveled from the hilt to the tip of the sword. When the flames reached the tip of the sword, the green energy that had finished preparing reached its greatest strength. It broke free of the sword tip, and at an astounding speed, flew towards Zuo Snap. The flying sword in Xiao Rujian's hand cracked. Xiao Rujian's killing move had not finished. A stab. Another stab. His movements were peerlessly fast. In a blink, 3 successive stabs were completed. The killing move of the 3 pure sword scripture. one sword transforming to 3 pure. The 3 green sword energies flew towards Zhuo in a straight line. The flying sword in Xiao Rujian's hand lost all of its light. When the last stroke was finished, the sword shattered into countless pieces. The first green sword energy crashed onto the Sunshin thorn. Bam! A burst of gold and green energies appeared in the air. Zhuo's expression became serious. A beast fought the hardest when it was trapped. Even with his strength, he did not dare to be careless. At this time, the sword energies changed again. The third sword energy suddenly sped up and thrust into the second sword energy. The 2 sword energies merged into one. If Xiao Rujian's sword energies could be described as crystal-like before, then the sword energies now were like a furious wave of green sword essence. Countless sword essences were gathered within in layers that moved restlessly in waves. With every wave, it became stronger. What surprised Zhuo was the rate it rose in power was very high. In a blink, this sword energy had multiplied in strength like a monster, revealing its figure. Compared to Xiao Rujian's previous sword energy, this was tens of times stronger. Zhuo shouted, his Sunshin power vibrating. His expression was serious, golden scripts rising off his body, and making him appear domineering. When the golden scripts appeared, Zhuo's presence suddenly changed. A vicious and primitive presence covered the entire battlefield, as though there was an ancient monster descending to the mortal realm. Xiao Rujian looked in disbelief at Zhuo. This was a skill from the ancient era. The ancients' way of fighting had simple moves without too many flourishes. Their bodies were even stronger than those wasteland beasts. They had endless power, they could pluck suns and moons from the sky. They were the strongest of that era. That was an era which was like a riddle, one that countless people yearned for. Zhuo was like a hero walking straight out of an ancient myth, like the totem warrior that the Sun tribe worshipped. An irresistible dominance, and a masculine and strong energy that was like the light of the sun which people could not avoid. Zhuo's right hand flashed with bright golden energy. The golden scripts on his body slowly circulated, the light on his right hand flickering, and forming a simple axe. Zhuo raised the golden axe of light high up. His entire body leaned forward slightly. He seemed to channel all of his strength into the simple axe he had raised. His eyes were wide, every muscle in his body was tense. A power to uproot mountains and an unrivaled presence. Just like the Sun tribe totem warrior of tens of thousands of years ago swinging the Sunshin axe. Just as domineering like the Sun tribe totem warrior of tens of thousands of years ago. Looking down on all beings like the Sun tribe totem warrior of tens of thousands of years ago. The only difference was that this was his era. Strong belief and furious power was channeled into the Sunshin axe in his hand. It swung downward. Chapter 776. Wei Sheng soared the green sword essence wave, and the Sunshin axe collided together in a show of brute force. Boom. Terrifying power exploded. The light was blinding like the sun, and illuminated the world. When the light faded, Zhuo's great figure appeared. He held the axe of light in his hand. His pressuring gaze was almost tangible as he slowly swept his gaze across the battlefield. He held Xiao Rujian's body in his left hand. Xiao Rujian had no signs of life. The light in Zhuo's eyes gradually faded, the axe of light disappearing. The powerful presence he gave off also disappeared. He once again appeared like a common person. He breathed out lightly and shook his head. The Sunshin axe was still a struggle for him. It was not as easy to use as the Sunshin thorn. He could manifest the Sunshin thorn, to the point that it seemed to be engraved with scripts, but he could only form the basic shape of the Sunshin axe. Even the shape was lacking, not to mention the sun scripts. The Shen techniques of the ancient era were so simple. The more complete the technique, the more exquisite their shape was, and the more powerful they were. He was just starting out. Shaking his head, he looked towards everyone else. An ambush. Those prepared against those unprepared, Hezi, and Hai and the others were just normal Kunlun disciples. They didn't have any ability to fight against Wei Sheng and Zhong Ru. And Hai's killing move, the 100 Fiend soul-destroying pill, had been used already. Zhong Ru's wish power wrapped around him, and Hai immediately lost his soul. He's circular fiend sword formation just been activated as it was easily defeated by Wei Sheng's sword strike. Before they acted, Mo had decided to not leave even one alive. Naturally, the Kunlun disciples' things were cleaned out. However, Mo did not have the time to inspect them now. His attention was all on this ancient octopus. Eldest Shixiang, you try? Wei Sheng nodded. The fight just now couldn't even be considered a warm-up to him. This mountainous octopus monster made him feel pressure and excited his fighting spirit. The god-killing blood sword in his hand, he flew in front of the octopus and stood gravely, lightly raising the blood-red sword. Wei Sheng's expression was solemn. His presence changed, and the air around him seemed to ripple in an indescribable manner. Marks of blood appeared on the sword. Wei Sheng's presence continued to rise. He narrowed his eyes. He was like an unsheathed sword, full of edges and soul-shaking. Thick sword essence gathered around him. The sky above his head quickly became dark. The black sea under his feet rippled outwards, as if escaping from the danger. A deep hole formed in the water underneath Wei Sheng. Standing as straight as a sword, Wei Sheng suddenly opened his eyes. Hiss. An indescribable hiss. The void sword essence around Wei Sheng gathered quickly towards him. He seemed to be the eye of the storm. Hiss hiss hiss. The sharp sword essence was like countless little swords that flew and held around Wei Sheng's body. The humming rose in volume and surged like the tide. Wei Sheng lightly flicked the sword in his hand. Virum. Like streams and rivers flowing into the ocean, the sword essence flooded towards Wei Sheng's blood sword furiously. The blood sword hummed in excitement, the marks of blood suddenly growing bright and filled with an eerie power. Wei Sheng did not seem to detect the excitement of his blood sword. His expression was determined, and his eyes like bloodied pure glass. He inherited the power of the god-killing blood sword, but he had not been assimilated by the god-killing blood sword. His steel-like resolve allowed him to control this terrifyingly large power. A strange layer of red tinged Wei Sheng's view. In his eyes, the blood sword in his hand was like an unwilling beast that constantly struggled. Sword. Feeling the world spread, Wei Sheng's expression was devout and focused. No matter how the blood sword in his hand struggled, he did not seem to feel it. The eerie and frantic power battered him along the sword hilt. Its bloodthirst and madness made it unusually powerful. Wei Sheng knew that if he let go at this time, the blood sword would definitely release an astounding strike. It had drank the blood of countless warriors. It had consumed innumerable fiend souls. It had grown through tens of thousands of years. It was powerful on its own. The frantic power battered Wei Sheng's mind in waves. Wei Sheng's blood and Shen power came from the blood sword, and was restless as well. It was a terrifying monster. If it was discontent, it would cause a backlash. Wei Sheng did not let go. His expression was still devout and focused. Under the increased mental battering and emotional assault that came with each wave, he guarded his sword heart. Countless scenes flashed through his eyes. He saw the motivating gazes of sect leader and the Shirshu. He saw the Wukong mountain of the past. He saw his own hardship as a sword servant. He saw himself drinking under the moon with Mo. He moved through the scenes. They became dimmer and dimmer, and he seemed to be walking in a dark empty space. Alone, without direction, without any light. Was that his future? A strong feeling of loneliness rose. His mind became puzzled and blank. Yet when his gaze landed on the sword that the figure held, all of the emptiness, loneliness, and bewilderment immediately disappeared. His body filled with power. The figure moving forward in the darkness used his sword to strike apart the darkness and void. Used his sword to cut out a path. The darkness and empty space retreated like the tide. Friendly and warm figures appeared around him. Wei Sheng seemed to wake up. A warm smile unconsciously rose on his mouth. The mental assault of the blood sword seemed to instantly become much weaker. No matter how it struggled, Wei Sheng's sword heart was like an unmoving rock. Just like that figure in the dream state, Wei Sheng raised the blood sword in his hand and moved it downwards. A red sword energy flashed. Vast sword essence charged. Boom. The sky seemed to shake. The water in front of Wei Sheng immediately disappeared, and a ruler straight passage that was dozens of li long appeared. In the 5 zhang wide chasm, there wasn't a drop of water. The black rock at the bottom of the ocean was exposed to the air. The walls of water on the two sides of the passageway were 500 zhang tall, and as smooth as glass. The chasm stretched into the distance. The octopus was fully exposed. There was a straight red bloodline through the middle of its body. Pia. The enormous body of the octopus fell from the air to the bottom of the chasm in two pieces. Poof. The blood that should have gushed and sprayed instead exploded into a mist. Wei Sheng's blood sword shook. The blood mist was drawn into the blood sword, and turned into a pillar of blood as it was absorbed. There wasn't a drop of blood left in the octopus. At this time, the walls of water started to crumble. The ruckus was like tens of thousands of horses galloping at once. Everyone, including Zhua Mo, was stunned by Wei Sheng's strike. Eldest Xixiang, really, was too much of a freak. Suddenly Zhua Mo shook the octopus. Little Mo Guest's eyes were immediately taken over by countless Jingshi. He appeared like lightning next to the octopus corpse. Without a second word, each of his hands pulled on one half of the octopus. Golden scripts appeared on his body, his Shen power rippling, his eyes wide, his muscles tensing. He breathed and shouted, "Ara area wa! Rise!" Under the motivation of Jingshi, the power that Zhua Mo displayed far surpassed his power when he had been fighting Xiaoru Jian. Zhua Mo seemed to be possessed by a god, an ancient monster. His tendons bulged. He panted as he pulled the two enormous pieces and slowly rose. He finally pulled them up onto the transportation ship before the water passageway collapsed. Wei Sheng, who had just finished his strike, saw this, and the devoutness and concentration on his face disappeared. His mouth was open wide, the muscles in his face frozen. He looked dazedly at Zhua Mo's superhuman action. The blood sword in his hand couldn't help but tremble. Everyone was stunned. In this moment, the entire place was silent. There was only the sound of Zhua Mo panting like the bellows of a furnace. He collapsed and leaned against the two mountains of meat, completely out of energy, with a dumb smile on his face. "Did you find their origins?" The sect leader of Thunder Sound Temple said. "We are not sure." The disciple responsible sweated. Looking at the unhappy expression of the sect leader, the disciple hurriedly added, "From the present clues, it is very likely they come from Mo Cloud Sea." Mo Cloud Sea? The sect leader's expression turned grave. But it is not easy to determine their true identity. They did not fight, and we could not prove that Lao Deguang was on their ships. We searched through their fleet, and did not find him. But then when we closed the transportation formation, they flew into the Black Sea flying route. They are highly suspicious. The sect leader remained silent. A long time later, the sect leader spoke. "This matter will end here." The disciple responsible stilled, and then had a surprised expression. The sect leader seemed to not see it and said, "You may leave." The disciple shook and reacted, bowing hurriedly. This disciple bids farewell. After the disciple left the hall, a youth with an impressive presence walked out from behind the drapes. If the disciple that had been here before saw this, they would have been greatly surprised. Yang Yuanhao, the best battle general of the 9 great Diana sects, Yang Yuanhao. No one knew that Yang Yuanhao had sneaked back to the sect without anyone's knowledge. Sect leader, are you worried about Mo Cloud Sea? Yang Yuanhao also had some surprise on his face and asked. The sect leader's gaze was deep. Seeing Yang Yuanhao, he had a small smile. "Yuanhao, you do not understand?" Yang Yuanhao shook his head. "Mo Cloud Sea will be our ally for a long time. However, we have not discovered if they are from Mo Cloud Sea or not. They could go through the Black Sea flight route, huh?" The sect leader huffed a laugh. "They aren't just Mo Cloud Sea, they are most likely Wei Sheng's group." Yang Yuanhao thought of another problem. He frowned. "Mo Cloud Sea knows our situation very well. How long has it been since the ruins appeared? They have already learned the news. For any battle general, it was a taboo for one's enemies to know too much about one's situation." The sect leader shook his head. "It may not be the case. Do not forget the matter regarding Heartleaf Diana sect. Mo Cloud Sea are not timid people." Yang Yuanhao nodded. "Heartleaf Diana sect did a stupid thing." The sect leader said, "What is the situation on the front lines?" "Kurenluan has been very silent recently. It is slightly unusual." A hint of worry flashed through Yang Yuanhao's eyes. A hint of cold flashed through the sect leader's eyes. Silent? It probably was them in the shadows creating the storm right now. Some people are always short-sighted. When they see that there is nothing to be worried about at the moment, they will want to make a fuss. I summoned you back here because I wanted to ask your opinion. Yang Yuanhao had been thinking on the way back. The sects had been very active recently, which had affected the unity of the 9 Great Dhyana sect. A divided 9 Great Dhyana sects would not even hold against one enemy attack. He suddenly thought of Mo Cloud Sea that was just mentioned. His eyes lit up. Maybe we could borrow some power. Chapter 777. Mountain of meat. They had really profited this time. Looking at the 2 mountains of meat in front of him, Zuemo felt as though he was in dream. This gift from Kunlun really was too valuable. Ancient beasts like this were rare and irreplaceable. If the Kunlun disciples hadn't used the soul-luring fragrance, Zuemo guessed that even all of them working together would not have been able to defeat this terrifying large thing. It would be a problem if they would be even able to escape alive. He had really not expected this profit. Kunlun were really good people. Everyone moved around the 2 mountains of meat in curiosity. It was rare to see such a large ancient beast. They basically only existed in legends. Because they were worried about encountering other strong beasts on the Black Sea flight line, the fleet did not dare to move around randomly on the route, but quickly flew towards their destination according to the steward's instructions. Only Zuemo could butcher the monster. He was the only one here skilled in forging. Only he knew what was useful or not. If the conditions allowed for it, Zuemo wanted to put the 2 mountains of meat into his ring, and then take it back to Mo Cloud Sea. That would allow it to express its greatest value. However, even though Zuemo's ring was top tier, it could not hold 2 such enormous mountains of meat. Zuemo worked hard for 3 days. The one responsible for guiding his hand was Wei. While it had been many years since he had last dismembered an ancient beast, he was the only one that was familiar. This octopus was treasure, profit, great profit. Zuemo hummed a tune, his movements happy and rapid. The octopus was made up of treasure. Zuemo carefully gathered its slime. This was a rare treasure that could absorb enemy Shin attacks. What was greatest about it was that it could absorb Shin power attacks up to a certain degree. Zuemo tested it and it was so. Only when the Shen power reached a certain level of purity, and the Shen technique reached a certain level of skill would the effect be overcome. In reality, it was the first time Zuemo had heard of a material with this property. Just this one trait determined its value. In the entire process, Zuemo was on high alert and fearful that he would miss a drop. He decided when he would forge his new Shin raiment, he would brush on this astounding Shin liquid, one coat after another, 100 times. Kunlun Shin power? Tianhuan Shin power? What of it? They wouldn't even create sparks when they hit his armor. The more he thought, the happier Zuemo felt. Kunlun was a good child, a good child. Zuemo started to hum again. Other than this, the octopus eyes were dried and turned into 2 black beads. However, these 2 beads were a bit large, about the same height as Zuemo. He didn't know the use of the black beads, but he had tested it with Shin power. Zuemo found that when Shin power entered, it seemed to disappear. It could absorb Shin power. This was the only attribute that Zuemo had discovered up until now. The time did not allow for him to slowly examine it. He could only throw it into his ring. He had a feeling that this definitely was something good. The skin of the octopus was hard. Normal flying swords could only leave behind a faint mark. In the end, it had been Wei Sheng with his god-killing blood sword that was able to cut it. Undoubtedly, the grade of this octopus skin was astounding. Zuemo guessed that it should be top level. For the great majority of Shin device raiments, high-level hide was essential. A Gui's undying ghost was a rarity in its composition. Most importantly, the surface area of this hide was almost unimaginable. Even if it was not able to be all used in Shin device raiments, if it was used to forge Shin equipment, they would be higher in grade than normal. Thinking about if he gave every one of the core members a pseudo-Shin device, and they were all outfitted, the offensive ability of Mo Cloud Sea would skyrocket. The teeth and bones of the octopus were all of extraordinary quality and could be used to forge Shin equipment. What made Mo feel was unique was the dense suckers on the tentacles. The largest of these suckers were the size of a person, the smallest just the size of a thumb. There were 1,200,000 of them. Mo was very interested in the suckers. They had an unique effect. Once they came into contact with something, they would instinctively absorb the power and life force of the target. It was very devious and terrifying. The bigger the sucker, the stronger its absorption ability. Mo knew that the suckers only had a lingering effect because the octopus was dead. If the octopus was alive, this ability would be much stronger. He thought about the many suckers. Everywhere they passed, all life was stolen. All of the blood, flesh, and energy was sucked into the octopus. This octopus had lived for tens of thousands of years. He didn't know how many lives it had consumed. So terrifying. Mo rejoiced. If there wasn't Kunlun's soul-luring fragrance, the possibility that the fleet would have survived would have been low. There was a kind of pattern that Mo had never seen before on the suckers. Mo suspected that it was this pattern that allowed the suckers to have such an unique ability. Mo decided to spend some time to study it. He put all the suckers away in the ring. They piled together into a little mountain. Mo knew that this was something good, but he didn't have a complete idea on how to use it. Everything that was useful was harvested and put away. But there was still a mountain of meat left in front of them. This was truly a mountain of meat. All of it was left behind after cutting up the octopus. The blood of the octopus seemed to have been completely sucked dry by Wei Sheng's god-killing blood sword. There wasn't even a drop of blood left. All of it was clean meat. Piled up there, it did not reek of blood. What to do with the meat? Mo felt stuck. There was just too much. Eat it, Wei suggested. In the ancient era, if such a monster was killed, the entire tribe would divide it up and eat it. Each piece of flesh of such a monster that has lived for tens of thousands of years has been refined for countless years by Shin power. They contain astounding power, and will be of great help to you if you use it. Really? Mo had a suspicious expression. Want you know after eating? Wei was discontent. Mo tried to use fire to roast a piece of meat. When he took a bite, his eyes widened. He felt an extremely faint thread of Shin power spread into his body. Good thing. He pointed at the mountain and said through a full mouth, "Eat, eat, eat." The other people saw this and started to act. They used different methods, but when the meat entered their mouth, they all became alert. Shin power. The meat actually contained Shin power, and they could absorb a portion of the Shin power. This discovery caused everyone to turn crazy. Right now, other than Mo, Wei Sheng, and Ague, who were special exceptions, the other people only had one path to increase Shin power: cultivation. This was the first time they encountered another way to increase Shin power. The meat mountain in front of them caused everyone to have a feeling they were smashed by happiness. Without needing Mo to call them over, everyone started to eat furiously. Yet they found quickly that while they ate at as fast as possible, it was nothing compared to the 300 zhang mountain of meat in front of them. They could not eat all of it. The greatest tragedy in life was when you find that eating meat could increase Shin power, and there was a lot of meat like this in front of you, but you could not finish it. Most of the people with Mo had grassroots origins, of impoverished backgrounds. They had endured many great hardships and hated wasting anything. How could they allow such a tragedy to occur? The group cursed the world. All of them had the same thought. No matter what, before they reached Lotus Sutra Temple, they had to finish consuming this meat mountain. Therefore, they started to think of solutions. In order to increase their appetite, they started to expend their Shin power, fighting, furiously cultivating, practicing. They invented all kinds of methods. If other people saw this, they would feel as though people's intelligence was limitless. For example, Wei Sheng quickly created a highly efficient method. He used the god-killing blood sword to absorb the Shin power inside the meat, and then pass it into his body. The speed of absorption was high. However, the god-killing blood sword was only interested in blood, and not at all in the meat. This caused Wei Sheng to have to search for beasts to feed it blood and coerce its cooperation. Zhongru's method seemed much gentler. He summoned all kinds of Buddhas to absorb Shin power, and then merged it in his body. Zuo was undoubtedly the brightest superstar of eating meat. All the little ones around him had extraordinary appetites, and there was still the glutton black gold seal soldier. Zuo was inspired by the suckers and his rate increased greatly. When the meat entered his stomach, the energies and Shen power would spread in threads into his body. Yet even so, when they flew out of the Black Sea flight route, they just barely managed to consume this enormous mountain of meat. All of them felt as though they had finished a difficult mission. Even composed people like Wei Sheng and Zhongru smiled. More of them felt lingering trepidation. In a very long time after, when any person mentioned the words eat meat, they would be attacked unanimously by everyone around them. It was like a war. Even a glutton like the black gold seal soldier felt fear at hearing, eating meat. Yet everyone's strength had increased enormously. The Shen power contained in an octopus that had lived for tens of thousands of years was enormous and terrifying. While they could not absorb all of it, and it was divided among so many people, for these people that had just started cultivating Shen power, this increase was still astounding. Nothing excited people more than strength. They were full of anticipation about the upcoming trip to the ruins. Even though they knew that they would likely face experts from Kunlun and Tianhuan, they did not feel any fear. As expected, they would have meat if they followed boss. They looked at Zuo with admiration. Some of the more honest people looked around as they traveled, muttering, "Another one, another one." As the fleet came closer to the ruins, they could clearly feel the number of Xiuzha increasing in the surroundings, including experts. Yet what no one knew was that Zuo, who was hiding in the ship, had made a new discovery, one previously stated as a one-eyed octopus. Chapter 778, Bihan. Madman. Ma Fan's battle was beautiful, Sherdong said with admiration. Winning a difficult battle was a great aspiration for any battle general. Also, this victory raised Ma Fan's fame, and placed him in the ranks of the first-class battle generals. There was competition among the battalions of Mo Cloud Sea as well. Sherdong and Yiling's Grey Camp was not the top-ranked among the many battalions. Sherdong was exceptional, but in Mo Cloud Sea, which was full of talented people, he was not the strongest. There was a handful of people with comparable strength. However, he did not feel any jealousy towards Ma Fan. Ma Fan deserved this. They had fought many times before, so many times it was innumerable. He knew Ma Fan's strength well. If Ma Fan was given a defense line, his strength would double. This was Lil Miss Darren's words, without any exaggeration. Ma Fan's achievements in other areas could only be said to be average, but once he gained control of a formation defense line, his win rate would become terrifying. No one liked to fight a defensive battle against Ma Fan. However, Sherdong was full of confidence in himself. Ma Fan had a field he was skilled in, and he had his own specialization. Bihan Darren's order is really strange. Yiling saw Bihan's orders and couldn't resist commenting. Sherdong looked into the distance and said softly, "I think I have guessed Bihan Darren's general goal." He tried to make himself look calm as normal, but the anxiousness in his eyes exposed his true thoughts. Bihan Darren was too daring. Was this the confidence of a top battle general? What kind of confidence was this? You have guessed Darren's thoughts? Yiling was slightly shocked. However, he was not surprised. He knew that his strategic vision was lacking compared to Sherdong. Sherdong shook his head. Not just me, everyone else should understand by now. Why is that even this conversation like a riddle? Yiling said helplessly. Look at our position, then Tang Fei and Ajagu. Sherdong's hand moved above the Jia map, and an invisible line caused Yiling's eyes to light up. He was still slightly puzzled. I cannot see anything. Sherdong did not waste words and continued. Us Tongzi Battalion, Ajagu Battalion, appear as though we have no connection to Bright Mountain Jia, but look here. On the Jia map, he found where Grey Camp was and with it as the center, drew out a circle. Then he found the two other battalions and drew out circles around them. Now look, Sherdong said calmly, while we are not directly connected to Bright Mountain Jia, but the area that we are active in, And the position that we guard are like 3 signal flares. They will attract the battalions around us. And we have blockaded the path of the enemy attempting to reinforce Bright Mountain Jia. I seem to understand after you say this. Yi Ling's expression was puzzled. However, what is the use to stopping the reinforcements? Bright Mountain Jia still has Hai Jinyu and Shang Yusheng. Ma Fan defeated the 2 Mo generals, but he definitely took great losses, and will not have forces to and help Bihan Darren. You should also know of Hai Jinyun and Shang Yusheng. They are rare talents that have risen recently. Bihan Darren alone. Wait. You mean? Yi Ling's eyes widened. He looked in disbelief at Sherdong as though he saw a ghost. Yes. We were wrong about Bihan Darren's intentions from the start. Sherdong tried to make his voice calm, but it was still filled with emotion. From the start, he decided to fight 1-on-2. We all were wrong. Then he said self-mockingly, this probably is the difference between us and top battle generals. We have to bow to his self-confidence. Yi Ling's eyes were wide, and he was unable to speak for a moment. This. He stammered for a while but could not continue. Sherdong shook his head, the shock in his eyes gradually disappearing. He recovered his usual calmness and composure. Since Bihan Darren dares to plan this, he must have some assurances. We will first carry out our own mission well. We cannot drag down Bihan Darren. A moment later, Yi Ling finally inhaled out a long breath. This is mad. Too mad. It was rare for Sherdong to see Yi Ling lose his composure. He couldn't help but flash a grin before he resumed his usual coolness. Don't worry for Bihan Darren. Let's first think of a way to finish our mission. Ma Fan gave a beautiful performance. If we do not finish our mission, we will be laughed at when we return. Yi Ling heard this and nodded seriously. All hail the king. We will do all we can in service for our king. We cannot be laughed at. Lei Peng and Nian Lu have the worst mouths. How do you think we should fight? I have an idea. Sherdong's eyes flashed with a cold light. Bihan Darren's idea is too dangerous. Tang Fei frowned. When Bihan's new orders were delivered to her hands, Bihan's intentions finally became clear. She had to admit that Bihan Darren's goal was completely unexpected. Miao Jun also jumped in fright at Bihan's intention. So mad. 1 against 2. I don't know what to say. He doesn't need to risk this at all. We are strong. While we are low in numbers, we are all elite battalions. There will not be much of a problem to take down 100 energy Jia, unless Darren has bigger ambitions. Tang Fei continued. She said in an uncertain tone. What will be even bigger? Miao Jun frowned and thought hard. He was thinking of what reason would cause Bihan to use such a dangerous plan. Suddenly, the two of them raised their heads and looked at each other at the same time, seeing the disbelief in the other's eyes. Bihan. Too dangerous. Ajaga looked at the order on his hand and murmured to himself. Bihan Darren's intentions had completely been made apparent. There was nothing hard to guess. However, Ajaga found it hard to understand why Bihan would plan such a risky battle plan. Ajaga did not know Bihan's strength well, but he knew that Bihan Darren was much stronger than him. He was also a gold battle general, but he was nothing compared to a top battle general. Bihan Darren's idea. Suddenly his eyes lit up. A daring idea that was also impossible flashed through his mind. Was it? His target is us, Shang Yusheng said slowly. His speaking speed was slow, almost pausing between each word. Hai Jinyan did not have any impatience. He smiled coldly. He really is ambitious. TSK, as expected of a top battle general. Look, his boldness is something that we cannot match. His goal is not Bright Mountain Jia. It was us from the beginning, Shang Yusheng said. She cannot be mobilized. The only ones that the alliance can move to match him are the two of us. He's too proud. If he used the time difference and attack us separately, he might have a chance. But we have met up. He wants to use his 1 battalion against us, huh? He's too naive. Hai Jinyun's voice was full of scorn. The two of them were new talents of the alliance. Among the new generation, they were strong and major figures. The two of them were thought of genius youths that would possibly become top battle generals. No one doubted this. People believed that if they had a few more years, the duo would definitely become top battle generals. Right now, they were not top-ranked battle generals, but the difference was minuscule. One of them alone might not be able to beat Bihan, but the two of them together, they had the advantage of numbers and they worked well together. They could only be stronger than Bihan. Hai Jinyun's scorn was not just due to arrogance. Shang Yusheng's expression was still serious. He said in his uniquely slow manner, "If this is not the case, will we fight him?" Hai Jinyun stilled. He thought and then he shook his head. "No, if I encounter him alone, I will definitely avoid him. Wait to meet up with you, before searching him out for a fight." "Maybe this is what he wants," Shang Yusheng said. Hai Jinyun was not stupid and reacted quickly. He said suspiciously, "You mean that he definitely has created a situation to make us feel as though we have the upper hand? Isn't that the case?" Shang Yusheng asked in return. Hai Jinyun was silent. Bihan had been the one that had arranged the present situation. If Bihan had deliberately done this, there was only one possibility. Bihan had absolute confidence in himself. This is not possible. Hai Jinyun couldn't help but say, "I will admit that Bihan is strong, but I don't believe that he can fight against the two of us in an open battle. Not even Shuedong can. Do you feel that the two of us cannot win against him?" "I also do not believe it." Shang Yusheng shook his head. "But I believe that Bihan definitely has powerful moves that we do not know of." Hai Jinyun nodded. "You are right, we need to be careful of his schemes." His expression became grave. "But I believe even more that strength is the most important in open battle. We need to keep an eye on the soldiers. Maybe spies have made their way into the battalions?" "And you are right, use inactivity to deal with all changes. Keep an eye on the ranks, we will not panic, and there will not be any problems." Shang Yusheng also threw away his worries. The two of them were among the strongest battle generals of the Mo Martial Alliance. Even though there were some areas of Bihan's plan that they did not understand, they would not become timid because of the other's feints. What any famed battle general believed in was himself, and the battalion behind him. Shang Yusheng laughed, fighting spirit in his expression and his tone excited as he said, "Yes, as long as we do not panic, he will not have a chance. Who's afraid of who? A top battle general is nothing. That's just because we have not shown our might. I want to see just how much water there is in this top battle general." Suddenly, a wave of urgent alarm sounded. The two exchanged a look, their expressions serious. Bihan had come. Chapter 779. Song Ling Shui in the darkness of the night. Song Ling Shui was silent and motionless like a puppet. Her pretty face showed faint sorrow. She threw herself into the darkness. She lost her usual aura of authority and restraint. She sat there like a normal 17-year-old girl, and stared at the distant mountains. The string of lantern lights were like the stars in the sky. She thought of the past years, their troubles, and how sparse the lights had been then. The present Song family was much more prosperous than before. She did not feel much pride, only exhaustion. At this time, she had shed her determination. She was like a helpless kitten curled in the corner. "Darren." The hoarse voice of a male sounded in the darkness. She did not raise her head. She was too familiar with this voice, so familiar that she did not need to pretend in front of him. She gave a light sound of acknowledgement. Yesterday, someone visited Second Elder, and Second Elder saw them off at the gates, the male said in a low voice. His usually calm voice was filled with indescribable fury. Third Elder's son was accepted into the first Yao art house. Song Ling Shui's lips moved. She said indifferently, "Isn't that what he hoped for? His prodigal son has always been a sickness on his mind. Chief Elder most likely cannot withstand the pressure for long," the male said in a low voice. "I heard Chief Elder's steward say that they received a threat from an unknown person yesterday. The target is Chief Elder's granddaughter. Chief Elder may likely remain quiet on this matter." "All of them betray me, haha." Song Ling Shui laughed. At this time, her cold laugh showed age that did not match her real age. The male was silent for a moment before he suddenly spoke. "Darren, flee." "Flee? Flee where?" Song Ling Shui was bewildered. "What about the Tsang family?" What about the Merchant Association? How can we care about that now? The male's tone became panicked. If Darren does not flee, it is likely. What's there to be afraid of? Song Ling Shui smiled desolately. Do not worry. I am worth more to them alive than dead. No matter if it is to take over the business association and the Tsang family, or to become a tool to earn them money, they all need me alive. The male was silent. Song Ling Shui murmured to herself. The elders are too timid. If they could harden their resolves, the business association would be able to bargain with these people. Darren, what if we throw away the business association? The male suddenly asked. Throw away the association? Song Ling Shui stilled. Then her brow furrowed, and she sat up. Who told you this? Yesterday night when I was spying on Second Elder, I was caught by someone when returning, the male said calmly. Ah. Song Ling Shui was astounded, the sternness and authority on her face disappearing. She asked urgently, Were you wounded? The male's heart warmed. He shook his head and said, No, the other only asked me to tell you this message. Song Ling Shui's expression eased slightly, but her heart trembled. Uncle Yan's strength was unfathomable in her eyes. No matter how difficult the mission was, Uncle Yan would finish it perfectly. Uncle Yan was the last support that her father had left her. If it wasn't for Uncle Yan, she would not have taken charge of the Tsang family so quickly. While Uncle Yan had never said how powerful he was, she could hear from between his words that Uncle Yan had been a powerful expert in the past. What is their background? Song Ling Shui asked curiously. Her mind moved quickly. She did not fear the addition of a new power. In truth, any change for her in this hopeless situation was good news. Because the situation would not be any worse than now. I could not see. Uncle Yan's tone was low, and filled with a rare wariness. The other is familiar with the underground world. I encountered at least 3 people that match me in strength. Those in the underground world that have such strength will not be unknown, yet I cannot identify these people's origins. Song Ling Shui became alert. She was intelligent, and Uncle Yan's words contained a great amount of information. The other was strong, and with so many experts it would not be a minor faction. The other wanted her to give up on the business association. They clearly wanted her ability at management. Giving up on the association but not the Tsang family showed that the other had confidence they could guarantee the safety of the Tsang family. This astounded her. If this message had not been carried to her by her most trusted Uncle Yan, she definitely would not believe it. Uncle Yan had watched her grow up, and the two of them were like father and daughter. He definitely would not betray her. Who was the other? She knew the reason that she felt hopeless at the families pressuring her, because they had the support of the Council of Elders. They were not people that she, the Tsang family, or the business association could fight. This mysterious faction was so confident. She felt it hard to believe. Are there any underground factions so strong? She murmured to herself. No. Unexpectedly, Uncle Yan answered. His tone was filled with certainty. The underground world is not large, and not as mysterious as the rumors say. The relatively major underground powers are closely connected to the Council of Elders. Then where do they find the confidence to make this offer? Song Ling Shui was puzzled. Uncle Yan hesitated for a while before saying, They may not be an underground power. Song Ling Shui stilled. How so? Uncle Yan explained. In truth, underground factions are fangs and teeth. Some major factions use them for convenience in spying and dealing with matters hard to openly resolve. If someone does it in the shadows, it is much easier to handle some matters. Most of the Yao underground powers have great backgrounds and support. Sometimes they are responsible for establishing contact. If I am right, and this develops, the faction behind them will be revealed. No wonder the underground factions can do as they wish. Song Ling Shui finally realized and said, That is a misunderstanding. Actually, they are restrained in many aspects, Uncle Yan said. They cannot go too far in many matters. The higher-ups will turn a blind eye to some matters, and not pursue them in order for them to survive. If the higher-ups order something, they have to complete it. The competition between the underground factions is cruel. The other wasn't an underground faction. Song Ling Shui became excited. Even though the situation was already like this, she still did not hope to fall to being on the side of an underground faction. The darkness was a road of no return, especially to a clan. Can Uncle Yen find out the origins of this underground factions? She asked in anticipation. If they could find the origins of these people, maybe they would find a clue to the people behind them. This was a deadlock. If someone disturbed it, maybe it would offer them a chance. Song Ling Shui's spirit rose again. Uncle Yen looked at Song Ling Shui, whose fighting spirit had come back, and nodded seriously. I will try. Zuomo's finger constantly moved through the air like a pen. He would occasionally stop and think for a while. He had been in this crazed state for a few days. He constantly swiped and drew. Other people knew that he was considering a problem, and did not disturb him. Zuo, who had ate meat until he almost went insane, originally prepared to refine the Shen power he had just absorbed. Yet when he was in the cabin and preparing to refine the power, that unique pattern from the green strand reappeared once again in his mind. This time he saw it more clearly. He discovered many places he had not seen clearly last time. He was overjoyed at these discoveries. Zuo was sure now that this pattern was a Shen glyph. For people now, Shen glyphs were not something far away. Tian Huan had been the first to study Shen glyphs, and they were the ones with the most understanding of Shen glyphs. Tian Huan's Shen power was based in Shen glyphs. As Shen power developed and more people cultivated Shen power, people's understanding of Shen glyphs increased. If one said that the core of Ling power was seal scripts, then the core of Shen power was Shen glyphs. Shen glyphs were not as mysterious as people imagined, but it was still the most profound and attractive mystery. Even Tian Huan, who had learned the most about Shen glyphs, had only mastered no more than 5 complete Shen glyphs up until now. So when Zuo realized what this pattern he could not understand was, he immediately became excited. Zuo knew a bit more than other people about Shen glyphs. In ancient tribes, each tribe would have their own Shen glyph. For example, the Sun glyph of the Sun tribe and the Greenvine glyph of the Greenvine tribe. These Shen glyphs weren't just related to their Shen power, they were also related to something else, ancient Shen devices. Ancient Shen devices were not the same as the present Shen device raiments. The forging of ancient Shen devices were done by the greatest members of each tribe, imprinting the Shen glyph into the device. The present Shen device raiments was something that Zuo had based more on forging methods before he had comprehended a complete Shen glyph. Almost all of the Shen device raiments followed Zuo's example. Zuo had mastery of 2 Shen glyphs. One was the Sun glyph, the other the Greenvine glyph. Of the two, he was more skilled on the Sun glyph, and less skilled with the Greenvine glyph. However, even though he mastered the Sun glyph, there were still many places he did not understand. The difference between Shen glyphs and seal scripts was that every part of the Shen glyph had to be comprehended. If one could not comprehend it, they could not use it or draw it. A completely new Shen glyph immediately caused Zuo to become excited. While he could not comprehend it right now, the value in a new Shen glyph still excited Zuo. As these years passed, and people pursued Shen power by exploring ancient ruins, all kinds of Shen glyph fragments appeared. On the black market, a rubbing of a Shen glyph part was worth cities. Only those that comprehend Shen glyphs could make imprints, and it was a great burden to the imprinter to make an imprint. Due to this, the number of Shen glyph imprints on the market was very small. Zuo quickly was immersed in the comprehension of a new Shen glyph. He tried to draw it according to the image in his mind. Suddenly, his fingertip felt heavy and gave him a different feeling. Chapter 780. Confidence. The dense ranks of the battalion were like a silent black cloud that pressed forward with great pressure. It was the first time Hai Jingyun and Shang Yusheng saw this famous battalion. They were silent. The battalion in front of them was like a group of lifeless killing machines. A deathly silence that was filled with indescribable murderousness. Top battle general, just as the rumors say. Hai Jingyun couldn't help but praise. His heart trembled. Sin Battalion. This was the legendary Sin Battalion, one of Mo Cloud C's 2 strongest battalions. The most famous battalion left behind by the fallen titan Xiankong Temple. Who would have thought that Jiangzhe, who had appeared on the world stage and astounded the world, would have died? Yet Bihan, who had been guarded against, became one of the greatest and top battle generals of all of the Xiuzhe world. There were no signs of life to be seen from the organized ranks. The almost mechanical meticulousness was expressed in every detail. The ghost-like seal scripts on the faces of the Sin Battalion members, as well as the indifference on their faces, made people's hearts feel cold. The advance of the battalion was like ghosts traveling silently in the night. They could not see Bihan. Bihan was hiding within Sin Battalion. From the information they had, Bihan's fighting method still followed Xiankong Temple style. He was also a rare battle general that used Xiuzhe methods while being a Mo. Shang Yusheng also had a serious solemn expression. He felt unprecedented pressure from Bihan. But there seemed to be a fire burning in his heart. His voice was as slow as usual but filled with spirit. We defeat him, we will become top battle generals. Ai Jinyan laughed. His faint golden face also flashed with fighting spirit. Yes, we defeat him, and we will become top battle generals. Humph, Bihan is too arrogant. In a frontal battle, power is everything. Kill him. He was filled with confidence in his battalion, and also in Shang Yusheng beside him. They would definitely win this battle. Bihan looked indifferently at the two battalions in front of him. The two battalions were well organized, and it could be seen they were well trained. The Mo soldiers also gazed over at his side with spirit and no fear. Some even licked their lips with anticipation on their faces. Bihan was experienced in war. This kind of soldier were battle-hardened elites. The expense to recruit and train this kind of elite was astounding. Also, there was no fear or caution on the faces of these soldiers. This proved that they were filled with confidence towards their leader. Bihan's heart was not stirred at all. Everyone thought Bihan was mad and extreme, but no one knew was that under his madness was an icy cold resolve. That fire at Xiankong Temple had swept away all of Bihan's savagery and hatred. He had buried that sect thousands of years old with his own hands, stolen its treasure. His last mental barrier had been overcome. Without his demons, Bihan was still mad, extreme, proud and hard to approach. He still attacked like a raging fire, still was stronger offensively than defensively, yet what no one knew was that he was silently changing. His changes were like Sin Battalion, forever silent. When one reached his level, they could only rely on themselves to advance. Without hatred, his excitement towards battle came from his own affection for it, as well as some emotions he could not verbalize. He liked his present life, he liked Mo Cloud Sea. He did not want this to be disrupted by others. At first no one knew of his improvement. Only Zhua Mo and Gong Sun Cha detected something. Without hatred, Bihan, whose mind had been freed, threw himself into thinking and studying. He was more terrifying than a hateful Bihan. He was a recluse, an outsider. He did not like to converse with others. He was stoic and spoke few words. He was like his Sin Battalion, unable to merge with the world, but he was a genius. He was a genius that grew up under the suppression of Xiankong Temple. While he was twisted, he was still a genius that was not any less that Jiangzhe, who had shone so brightly. The first to notice his change was Zhua Mo. Zhua Mo stared to help improve and change Bihan's Sin Battalion to strengthen them. The first strengthening at Great Peace City had improved Sin Battalion's fighting abilities. After that, Sin Battalion, this nightmarish name, finally became a nightmare battalion. The modifications this time were greater than last time. The present Zhua Mo was much stronger in all aspects compared to that time. Zhua Mo might not know as much as Gong Sun Cha and Bihan about tactics, but his sense and strategy was admirable. It was under his efforts that Sin Battalion became the first true Shen Power battalion of Mo Cloud Sea. In Zhua Mo's view, the Shen Power era would become the era of Shen Power battalions. Sin Battalion's Mo puppets that were like seal soldiers gave Zhua Mo enormous room to work. He was the creator of the first pseudo-Shen device. Zhua Mo's skill in this area might not be the best in the world, but he was among the best. The completely new Sin Battalion excited Bihan. The second to notice Bihan's change was Lil Mississippi. As a top battle general himself, Lil Miss perceptively detected Bihan's transformation. In order to help Bihan go a step further, he quietly invited Bihan to temporarily take his duties as the principal of the Battle General House. As expected by Gong Sun Cha, Bihan as the principal was crude in his methods. He practiced battle through battle, using real combat rather than lecturing. He beat the young battle generals of the Battle General School until they spat blood. Yet in this kind of combat simulation, Bihan's new fighting method gradually formed, and details were perfected. Bihan was slightly strange in personality, but he was not one that did not know good and bad. He remembered Gong Sun Cha's care. Until arsonist. He had never thought that he would possess a Shen device raiment so quickly. Even Zuo, Wei Sheng, Zhongru, and Sung Lianer didn't have their own. The first and second Shen device raiments of Mo Cloud Sea were both battle general types, and one of them was his arsonist. When he learned that arsonist was his, Bihan, who was not skilled in using his speech to express his emotions, became even quieter. No one could say anything about Gong Sun Cha receiving City Destroyer. He was Zuomo's shitty, Zuomo's first and most loyal follower. Yet him an outsider, he had been conned by Zuo over to Mo Cloud Sea when he didn't have anywhere else to go. In terms of closeness, he definitely ranked very low. He had been restrained in Xiankong Temple, suppressed, disowned by his father and brother, and then exiled. Bihan had tasted all the warmth and coldness life had to offer. The arsonist was the first time he felt that if he was to die for Darren, to die for Mo Cloud Sea, it would be worth it. So when Zuo gave him the important duty of taking down 100 energy Jia, he set down this seemingly mad target. The 9 great Diana sects could not be attacked. It was not the time to attack the Yao. The most likely route of expansion was the Mo Martial Alliance. It was not hard to conquer 100 energy Jia, but after doing so, the Mo Martial Alliance would be extremely wary of Mo Cloud Sea, and would be prepared to resist when further expansion occurred later. Bihan's true goal was, at the same time as conquering 100 energy Jia, he would try to decrease Mo Martial Alliance's strength as much as possible. The mad plan had formed like that. Right now, it was the most crucial battle. If he won this battle, killed Hai Jinyun and Shang Yusheng, the Mo Martial Alliance's strength would be greatly hampered. The weakened Mo Martial Alliance would cause the factions around it to stir. This was even more beneficial for Mo Cloud Sea. No matter what, he had to win this battle. He touched the Shen device raiment he wore. Arsonist. A cold feeling came from his fingertip. Bihan's eyes were icy and murderousness. Sim Battalion advanced. The bright Mountain Jia battle that was being watched by the world entered its climax. That person is investigating our origins. Chai Shanqing laughed softly. The other, the Tsang family's Uncle Yan, had clearly left the world of darkness for a long time, and many of his moves were now rusty and unpracticed. Usually this would not attract attention, but for people like Chai Shanqing, experts that lived all this time in the world of the darkness, this bit of shortcoming immediately attracted their attention. Oh, it seems that Song Ling Shui still hasn't given up. Yu Qinlai had a cruel smile. While he said that these were missions for Nan Yu and the others, he still followed and aided them. He felt exasperated. He wondered why the higher-ups had sent a bunch of greenhorns on such a mission of high difficulty. While Nan Yu and the others were strong, they were clearly not experienced enough and beginners in all areas. After thinking about the importance of a bird-level mission, Yu Qinlai followed them for good measure. Yu Qinlai knew that the value of all of Blackfire could not compare to this mission. For the higher-ups, supporting an underground faction like Blackfire was nothing. The reason that he had been chosen most likely was related to his family, the Yuqin family. The first time they met, that person had mentioned this family name that had almost faded in his memory, and would occasionally cause a ripple in his heart. That person had given him great care in these past years. But after living for these years in the underground, he knew that the so-called friendships of the ancestors was never more useful than at present. Nan Yu and the others sighed in relief at the presence of Yu Qinlai. They knew themselves. They could manage to do things like kill people and set fires, but in terms of scheming, they were incompetent. Yu Qinlai immediately became the core of this mission. As he took command, all of Blackfire started to turn around him. The core members of Blackfire all knew that the support behind Boss was very strong. and the faithfulness of the entire group increased greatly. Most of the people that lived in the underground world always had reasons that they had to do so. There were rarely people that choose to live the darkness. Most were forced into this life due to various circumstances. Darkness meant falling and light meant a future. They had families, they hoped to have a bright future. This was a trait of all people. They bet on this opportunity. Why don't we give them a warning? Tao Wei smiled, sharpness flashing through her eyes. A cruel smile rose on Yu Qinlai's lips that did not match his age. Go, let her understand that she is just a lamb. Lambs do not qualify to negotiate with wolves. Chapter 781. Opportunity. Xiao Rujian, He and Anhai are dead, killed by others. Tanzu's voice was indifferent, as though he was speaking about a matter not related to him at all. What happened? They seem to have been planning something. Did something happen? Niechen frowned. They had been scheming about an ancient octopus on the Black Sea flight route. The female Xiao who spoke had a beautiful appearance, but her expression was frosty. She was the famous ice queen of Kunlun, Zhen Mingling. Many of Kunlun's male disciples were in love with her. She wasn't just an outstanding beauty. She was exceptionally talented and hard-working on her cultivation. Her progress was so rapid it caused countless males to feel ashamed, and no one dared to confess to her. Tanzu's brow didn't even flicker. He said coolly, "They died on the hands of others. Humph, they did not have enough skill. Die if they want to, but do not shame Kunlun." Niecheng frowned slightly. He was displeased with Tanzu's attitude, but he also knew Tanzu's personality. Tanzu was reclusive and strange, not welcomed among the disciples. Niecheng was the opposite. His appearance could not be said to be handsome, yet he had a lively presence. While he was strong, he was friendly towards the other disciples and deeply popular with them. Also, he was on good terms with Lin Qian. As Lin Qian was in charge of Kunlun at present, his status had risen as well. He said, "Ru Jianshidi is not bad in strength, and has a cautious personality. If he acts, he most likely has properly prepared. He and Anhai are average in strength, but they are definitely experts in the outside world. He Shimi also has the circular fiend sword formation from Su Shirshu. Anhai has Wu Shishu's 100 soul destroying sword pill. Unless the enemy is too strong, how can they die at the hands of others?" He saw that Zhen Lingming and Tanzu were not interested in this matter, and did not bring it up again. Their mission this time was difficult, and everyone was under great pressure. They had to obtain the Shun device nucleus of the ancient ruins. Kunlun had many eyes and ears everywhere. When the ruins were just discovered, Kunlun received the news. After that, Kunlun started to use its power to divine and search for clues. When other people were still uncertain about what was inside the ruins, Kunlun had already divined that there was a Shun device nucleus there. All kinds of high-level forces continued to infiltrate the 9 Great Dhyana sect territories. Their intelligence network was also activated, and they schemed to obtain a token. Niechen and the other 2 were some of the most accomplished disciples of the newest generation of Kunlun. They had not been talented before, but after cultivating Shin power, they had risen up and became stronger by the day. In the last few years, as they cultivated the new Shin power, under the full support of the older generation, Kunlun had a wave of disciples that were outstandingly talented and had strong Shin power. This batch of disciples were all talented. In order to create a wave of experts, Kunlun had invested greatly in them. They were also hardworking and determined, not failing to live up to Kunlun's hopes, and grew up quickly. This group of disciples had a name inside of Kunlun. They were called the Children of Kunlun. Each child of Kunlun had unique power within Kunlun. They had the best support, the best treatment. They were directly under Kunlun's command. Every child of Kunlun had unfathomable power. Outstanding power and great resources combined with Kunlun's determined and persistent attitude had created this new wave of powerful disciples. Child of Kunlun was synonymous with strength. They were the top fighting force in all of Kunlun. They were unquestionably loyal to Kunlun. They had self-control and worked hard. They were emotionless and cold. They appeared at the most dangerous missions. They were the idols that all Kunlun disciples revered. Ever since the children of Kunlun were founded, this mission was the first time 3 children of Kunlun were sent out together. From this, Kunlun's desire for the Shen device nucleus could be seen. I'm going to cultivate. Tansu threw down before leaving. Zhen Lingmeng also left without a word. Niechen was left alone to grimace helplessly to himself. Lotus Sutra Temple is up ahead. The steward had an expression of joy. It really was a blessing from the heavens that they had safely survived the Black Sea flight route. The Lotus Sutra Temple honored the lotus flower, and all kinds of lotus flowers could be seen all along the route. They were exquisite and elegant. However, other than Zhongru who would admire them, the other people didn't even look at them. Everyone looked warily at the surroundings. They had already detected several groups of dangerous presences. They were brushing shoulders with powerful enemies. To make them feel danger like this meant they were strong. At the beginning of any new era, there were always many geniuses. Mo Cloud Sea improved by the day, and the others were not willing to fall behind. Even Wei Sheng felt slightly wary of the power of the people just now. It seemed that the temptation of the Shen device nucleus surpassed his imagination. Zhua Mo stood at the front of the ship as his heart trembled. His eyes were experienced. Just now he even saw Mo and Yao. This surprised him. However, when he thought about it, he understood. The Shen device raiment was a great weapon of strategic value to any power. If there was even the slightest chance, no one would be willing to give it up. Suddenly, a Diana Xiao dressed in white robes with lotus flowers on the sleeve flew towards them. The entire fleet went on guard. The other seemed to not see their wary gazes and bowed. Then he said, "Guest from Mo Cloud Sea, my master invites you." Zuomo's eyelid flickered. The other knew their origins. He did not admit or refute it. He examined the other for a while before speaking. "You are from Lotus Sutra Temple?" The other smiled. "This one is the White Lotus Reverend of Lotus Sutra Temple." The steward's expression changed. Lao Deguang's face turned ashen. He carefully made his way beside Zuoremo and said in a low voice, "There are 4 reverends in Lotus Sutra Temple, blue, red, white, black. The 4 Lotus Reverends have a high position in the sect just below the sect leader." The master of the White Lotus Reverend? Then that referred to the sect leader of Lotus Sutra Temple. Zuoemo immediately realized that his journey had been exposed. He did not try to hide it and said with a smile, "Please lead the way." Under the guidance of the White Lotus Reverend, they came to a nondescript place. As expected, it was the sect leader of Lotus Sutra Temple. The 9 Great Dhyana sect had always been targets that Mo Cloud Sea paid attention to. Zuoemo could recognize the sect leaders of all of the 9 Great Dhyana sects. When Zuomo's gaze landed on a young person next to the sect leader of Lotus Sutra Temple, his gaze suddenly focused. Yang Yuanhao, the best battle general of the 9 Great Dhyana sects, Yang Yuanhao. What was he doing here? Zuomo's expression was calm, but his mind was a storm. He suddenly realized the meeting this time was probably an opportunity. Boom boom boom. Ear-splitting explosions occurred constantly. The lights flashed across the sky like rain and illuminated Bihan's cold and emotionless features. The battalions from both sides were tangled into a ball, truly mixed together. Bihan abandoning technique to charge had been unexpected to Hai Jinyun and Shang Yusheng. They hadn't thought that Bihan would dare to make a full frontal assault when he did not have the advantage of numbers. But the two were not ordinary people and quickly responded. A charge against a charge. Hai Jinyun's battalion was like a roaring lion that welcomed Sim battalion that came at them, and collided head-on. Shang Yusheng's battalion maintained their distance from Hai Jinyun. He was like a dagger hidden in the shadows waiting for a chance to land a fatal blow. The two flows smashed together, creating dazzling sparks. Kill. Hai Jinyun charged at the very front. His faint golden face twisted and ferocious. He gave off golden light like a sun that could not be directly looked at. He was the most eye-catching existence on the battlefield. He felt no fear. He held the large black blade in front of him horizontally. The Mo steed under him roared, and he was like a god of war. Elite guards kept close to him in order to prevent Hai Jinyun from being trapped. Hai Jinyun remained fixed. The Mo steed under him suddenly jumped forward, the large black blade in his hand suddenly lighting up with a blinding golden light as he cut down. A golden blade energy dozens of zhang wide came with a destructive and unstoppable presence forward. The golden energy flashed and reflected on the faces of the Sin Battalion soldiers, dimming and brightening. They still had cold expressions that did not change at all at this sight of this astounding blade energy. The gray-white eyes were lifeless, their cold faces expressionless. They seemed to come from another world. Just as the blade energy was about to hit their bodies, the Shen equipment of the Sin Battalion soldiers suddenly lit up with marks of light. These marks of light that were like seal scripts caused a threat of pain to appear on the expressionless faces of the Sin Battalion members. They seemed to be enduring a pain. Yet in reverse to the pain on their faces, their gray-white and lifeless eyes suddenly became as clear and bright as though they were eyes of a baby. They seemed to open their eyes for the first time to see the world. Facing the astounding blade energy, 50 Sin Battalion soldiers moved at once. Countless energies flew out from their hands. In this moment, the rays of light formed a net in the air. Every energy that hit the blade energy would give off a soul-shaking explosion. The explosions continued at a rapid rate that caused people's scalps to go numb. The Sin Battalion soldiers were unaffected. Their movements were lightning fast and their attacks were constant. The lights were like a rainstorm that hit the blade energy. With every hit from the light energies, the blade energy would shake. In an instant, thousands of light energies hit the blade energy like thousands of spiderwebs entangling the blade energy. After being hit thousands of times, the astounding blade energy dozens of Zhonglong collapsed. As expected of Sin Battalion, just a few dozen members of Sin Battalion were able to block Hai Jinyun's full-on attack. Elite. Before the era of Shen power had arrived, Hai Jinyun had just been a normal Mo general. However, after cultivating Shen power, he had become a powerful battle general that surpassed Mo marshals. The blade energy being destroyed simulated Hai Jinyun's fighting spirit. With an angry shout, the golden light on his body intensified. His presence suddenly exploded and increased. Hai Jinyun was like a golden ball of fire that burned brightly, giving off so much light people were unable to look directly at him. Hearing the angry shout of their commander, the surrounding Mo soldiers also shouted in unison. Which of them were not proud? When had they ever had such a setback? The presence of the battalion rose, and the morale rose rather than be impacted. Boom! Thousands of Mo soldiers shouted at the same time, golden and angry flames erupting from their bodies. They were like thousands of fires that burned fiercely. The entire Mo battalion was like one being. They could communicate with each other, and their presence seemed to be one without any weakness. The golden light seemed to be alive. It gathered towards Hai Jinyun at an astounding rate. The golden light on Hai Jinyun increased by more than 10 times. He was like a blinding sun that people could not look at. An angry shout came from the ball of light and rang out over the entire battlefield. Hundreds of long golden blade energies exploded from within the sun. Each blade energy was several li long, and came at Sin Battalion like a storm. Chapter 782. A battle of charges. The fighting method of the Mo was to gather all the power of the battalion onto the battle general, and then have it activated by the battle generals. As a result, Mo fighting methods had strict requirements for battle generals. Other than combat sense and a grasp of the battlefield, one had to be strong as an individual. Otherwise, they would not be able to tolerate the concentrated power from the entire battalion. Hai Jinyun had been an unknown before, but after cultivating Shen power, his strength had skyrocketed, and he quickly became one of the 3 major battle generals for the Mo Martial Alliance. His combat method followed the style of Mo battle generals. His body, which had been refined with Shen power, allowed him to tolerate more power. Also, his own Shen power allowed him to easily manipulate the great power he gathered from the battalion. Boom! The power of the entire battalion gathered towards him as if attracted to a magnet, causing a release of blade energies. Each blade energy was several li long, like enormous sickles that cleaved through the entire battlefield. Howls and wails filled the battlefield. A normal battle general would probably fall apart facing such an astounding attack, and be robbed of all of their spirit. Yet Hai Jinyun's enemy was Bihan, a top battle general that could enter the top 10 of the Xiuzhi world. It was not easy to shake him with such an attack. The members of Sin Battalion silently changed position. Some people disappeared into space, and then appeared in another place in the same moment. In a blink, a battle formation formed. Arrive! A spiraling Diana chant was unusually clear among the waves of wails and howls, reaching directly into the mind. Mo that were slightly weaker heard this, and the golden lights on their body trembled. Their minds almost went out of control. Sin Battalion originated from Xiankong Temple. Even now, it was possible to see many traces of Xiankong Temple's influence. Dark red light bloomed from beneath the feet of Sin Battalion. The red light flowed and flew up into the sky. Enormous dark red seals formed in the sky. Boom boom boom. The intimidating blade energies struck the red seals. Enormous explosions drowned every person on the battlefield. When the light dissipated, the red seals were mostly dim. There was only one red seal that had been destroyed. What had also disappeared at the same time were 10 Sin Battalion members. However, all the blade energies had disappeared from the sky. Bihan was expressionless. His face seemed to be carved from stone, and did not show any ripples from the intense fighting in front of him. However, defense was never Bihan's style. For Bihan, who was said to attack like fire, how could he only fight a defensive battle? In a blink, the Mo soldiers that were covered by the Red Seal formation quickly turned into bloody puddles of liquid. Death Whirlpool. This was an unique and obscure combat formation. It had to start from death. It would activate quickly and with great power. This battle tactic was one of Sin Battalion's common tactics. However, in Xiankong Temple's book, the life of a Sin Battalion member or multiple members were used to initiate this formation. However, Bihan took an original approach and first used a combat formation to summon a Skanda Buddha, and then used the life of the Skanda Buddha to activate this formation. The Skanda Buddha was very powerful. With it as the starting material, the Death Whirlpool was unprecedentedly powerful. In an instantly, more than 300 Mo soldiers turned to bloody puddles of goop without time to even wail in pain. Hai Jinyun's eyes turned red. He hadn't thought that he would fall for Bihan's trap. Go die! He shouted, the great blade in his hand slicing towards Bihan's position. Golden split chop, angry wave. Boom. A golden wave roared towards Bihan. The range of this move was so great it made people feel it was unable to be avoided. Bihan's expression changed slightly. He could clearly feel the terrifying strength of this move. However, was Bihan someone that feared battle? His face became expressionless again, and his figure suddenly disappeared from his spot. Almost at the same time, it seemed that there were no people left in front of the golden wave. 100 Ghost Thread Shadow Formation. Sin Battalion was special. There were countless Jinji on their bodies. These Jinji could increase their strength, bring them endless pain, and also restrain their souls. These Jinji were not a secret of Xiankong Temple, but obscure techniques that Xiankong Temple had gathered over thousands of years. The 100 Ghost Thread Shadow Formation was one of those. It could allow Sin Battalion to quickly move through space much faster than normal methods. A thread of a smile flashed on Hai Jinyun's lips. While Bihan had all kinds of moves in his eyes, this supported the fact that Bihan was just a paper tiger. A true battle general did not need to use these low-grade moves. He suddenly spun the blade in his hand. That golden wave suddenly exploded, turning into bolts of golden light that entered the Sin Battalion battle formation. Before Sin Battalion that just came out of the void could react, they were drowned by the golden light. Bihan was expressionless and was not moved by the deaths. The fighting was growing more intense, and in a full frontal assault like this, the difference between the two sides would decrease. Both sides were experienced battle generals, and charging into the enemy formation was a tactic that every battle general was familiar with. It was not possible to make a mistake with battle formations of this level. Both sides were battle generals that were stronger offensively. As the battle quickly moved from intense to horrific, the The fatalities piled up. Shang Yuxing carefully observed the battlefield. No detail escaped his eyes. Hai Jingyun was the strongest offensive battle general of the Mo Martial Alliance. Full-on charges like this was the best for him. He hadn't expected that Bihan was able to suppress Hai Jingyun and still have the upper hand. While the advantage was not so great, it surpassed the limits of imagination. He did have the upper hand. Charges were a basic technique for every battle general. They could not make mistakes. This meant that Bihan's fundamental skills were higher than Hai Jingyun. However, this advantage was not so great that he could fight one-on-two. Yet why had Bihan turned the situation into this? Bihan had been the one to create the present situation. Why had Bihan done this? Shang Yusheng could only think of one explanation. Bihan believed that, even one-on-two, he could win. Did Bihan have some great move up his sleeve? Shang Yusheng was puzzled. He did not start fighting immediately. The more intense the fighting, the more beneficial it was for them. A hard battle would greatly decrease Bihan's strength. Hai Jingyun could afford to do it because he had Shang Yusheng, but Bihan could not afford it as he did not have reinforcements. The battle continued, and the slaughter still continued. Shang Yusheng could not help but feel a thread of respect. As expected of Bihan, who came from Xiankong Temple. His tactics were exquisite, and he used all kinds of battle and seal formations expertly. He did not have any delay when he changed formations, and many of the variations were almost wondrous. However, while he admired the other, Shang Yusheng felt more assured. While Bihan's upper hand on the battlefield against Hai Jingyun grew larger, Shang Yusheng knew that victory was growing closer for himself. Hai Jingyun's battalion only had half of its members left after these exchanges, but these high losses were worth it because they were in exchange for the death of one-third of Sin battalion. If a normal battalion lost one-third of its members, the battalion would not be far from collapsing. Yet the two battalions were unusually hardy. Hai Jingyun was almost mad from the fight, while Bihan was cold-blooded in his coolness. Shang Yusheng sighed inside. Such a powerful battle general was about to fall today. A cold light flashed through his eyes. It was time to attack. Editor's notes. I find these numbers odd. Most traditional accounts of medieval battles place casualties in battle at about 14 to 15% losses for a defeated army during the battle. The majority of deaths came after due to cavalry chasing down a routed army's infantry, and infections from wounds. I find the high losses odd here, because previously FX would normally have an enemy army rout before being slaughtered to this extent. Chapter 783. Yu Qinlai's skills. The meeting with Yang Yuanhao remained a secret to everyone else. Only Zhua Mo and Yang Yuanhao attended this meeting. Even the sect leader of Lotus Sutra sect excused himself. Zhua Mo gained greatly in this meeting. For Mo Cloud C. They needed the 9 great Dhyana sects to stop Kuan Luan and Tian Huan. For the 9 great Dhyana sects, they also needed Mo Cloud C's support. The two had common interests and demands, so all that was left, dividing the benefits, was easy. Zhua Mo was the boss of Mo Cloud C. Yang Yuanhao was the first-ranked battle general of the 9 great Dhyana sect, a person with true power in the 9 great Dhyana sects. Both were decision-makers for their factions. Adding on that the two both had strong strategic vision, and knew where the other's bottom line was at, the process went smoothly. Through Yang Yuanhao, Zhua Mo learned that the bigger sects in the 9 great Dhyana sects were closer than outsiders thought. For example, the sect leader of Lotus Sutra Temple was Yang Yuanhao's paternal aunt. This kind of tangled relation caused Zhua Mo to gape. However, this also eased the majority of his worries. As long as the 5 larger sects did not turn on each other and creating chaos, then the 9 great Dhyana sects would not easily fall to Kuan Luan and Tian Huan. Zhua Mo expressed his worries and fury about the sects that had been infiltrated the most heavily. Yang Yuanhao subtly implied to him that Mo Cloud C could use some methods in secret. Zhua Mo quickly realized that Yang Yuanhao wanted to use him to eliminate these troubles. Yang Yuanhao himself had boundaries to his influence, and he could not do many things. Zhua Mo acknowledged and confirmed. While it would be troublesome, this was also an opportunity for Zhua Mo. However, What surprised Zuomo the most was that Yang Yuanhao was willing to support Zuomo to compete for the Shen device nucleus inside the ancient ruins. Zuomo had never thought that there would be a sect that did not desire a Shen device raiment. Little Mo Gu was a smart person, and he immediately had a higher opinion of Yang Yuanhao. This person wasn't just an exceptional person. Yang Yuanhao knew the status of the 9 great Diana sects. While a Shen device raiment was of use to the 9 great Diana sects, it was not so important. If the 9 great Diana sects were threatened by top factions like Kunlun and Tianhuan, Mo Cloud Sea would definitely not sit by. Also, the location of the 9 great Diana sect meant it was fated to be a territory where there would be constant skirmishes. Rather than have the Shen device raiment that would not be of great use to their problems, it was better to trade it for Shen equipment which would increase the collective ability of their battalions. As expected, Yang Yuanhao raised this as his request. He wanted to use their support to trade for a shipment of Mo Cloud Shen equipment. Zuomo agreed without hesitation. Mo Cloud Sea was the exact opposite of the 9 great Diana sects. The battalions had long ago been outfitted with Shen equipment. For them, Shen device raiments that were valuable strategic weapons that they desired the most. A shipment of Shen equipment for the rich Mo Cloud Sea was not a problem at all. The conversation was pleasurable. Yang Yuanhao was a person with great personal charisma. Zuomo noticed that Yang Yuanhao's power within the 9 great Diana sects was stronger than he imagined. Yang Yuanhao warned him that there was an extremely high number of experts this time. Almost all of the strongest of the world had gathered, especially the Yao and Mo experts. After cultivating Shen power, the Mo and the Yao also saw the rise of a group of exceptionally powerful Shen power users. Compared to the fame of Kunlun and Tianhuan's members, no one really knew where these people came from. Any Shen device raiment was an irresistible temptation for any top Shen power user, or any faction with ambition. Zuomo nodded seriously. He suddenly found that the exploration of the ruins this time would not be as easy as he had imagined. With the local power Lotus Sutra Temple leading the way, the traces of Zuomo's group were concealed. They had good intelligence. They did not attract any attention as they arrived at the border of the ruins. While there was still a few days until the ruins opened, it was possible to see people scattered in this area exploring the geography or trying to search for clues. There aren't many people. Zuomo was slightly happy. Naturally, the fewer people here the better. Competition would not be as fierce if there were fewer participants. The White Lotus Reverend imperceptibly glanced at him and said with a calm expression, "At the start, there were many people, but fights kept on breaking out. Some people tried to use the chaos to steal the artifacts. In one night, over 300 people died, and then the population here decreased." Zuomo's smile froze on his face. The expressions of other people also became serious. More than 300 people dying in one night. Just these few words were enough for people to imagine the chaos and cruelty of that night. "Don't you maintain order?" Lao Deguang couldn't resist asking. It had to be said that all people had their own ways. Lao Deguang, this famed thief, had many unorthodox channels of information. He was likely more informed than Lotus Sutra Temple in some aspects. How can we control it? An expression of helplessness appeared on White Lotus Reverend's face. He said coolly, "Right now, the Shen power experts in this area could destroy the sect if they decided to work together." Lao Deguang became silent. Zuomo was not surprised by this. He only rejoiced that Mo Cloud Sea did not have a ruin of this kind. Otherwise, regardless of whether he could get the treasure, safety would be a problem. Even in Mo Cloud Sea where there were many top experts, they were insignificant against all of the Shen power experts in the world. If these madmen went on a rampage, no one could survive them. Humph. Anyone who stops us from getting rich will die. Little Mo Gu said viciously. The White Lotus Reverend smiled and handed over a jade scroll. "Inside is the geography of this area. We have already explored this area. This was prepared for us originally, but we can only give it to you now." At this time, Wei Xing suddenly turned his head. "It is best for you not to fight back. I do not mind killing you." A cold voice came from the darkness. It was ethereal, and one was unable to pin their position from the voice. Assassin. Only those assassins that moved in the darkness would give him a feeling like this. He also knew from his days as a member of the underground what level of assassin he was facing. Uncle Yan's expression was normal, and he was motionless like a statue. His expression was still calm as though he did not feel the murderous intent at his back. Why are you doing this? Miss has not refused you. Uncle Yan's voice did not tremble at all. He seemed to be describing a simple truth. Our time is precious. Another voice came from another direction in the darkness. This voice was light, and filled with warmth and friendliness, as though they were talking with an old friend. Yet Uncle Yan's eyelid flicked. He was still composed. We need time to consider. You also know that this is a significant decision. Actually, I don't mind kidnapping her. The soft female voice in the darkness seemed to say in a teasing tone. Or send her to the bed of Elder Yi's grandnephew. Uncle Yan's heart suddenly dropped. We did not do so because she is an outstanding candidate. The voice in the darkness was still cheerful. However, you know that people in our profession never put our eggs in one basket. She is outstanding, but not irreplaceable. Uncle Yan was silent, but he also knew that there was no chance now. What do you want? That's right, don't make it difficult for me. Everyone's out to make a living. Why make ourselves unhappy? We only need her talent, not her body. We will protect her clan. Our offer is very sincere. Other than me, I believe that no one will offer such a deal. The voice cheerfully added from the darkness. A condition like this should not be refused. Uncle Yan was a person who lived life on the edge of his blade. He could hear the others' decisiveness and strong presence. His side and their side were not on the same level. He was silent for a moment before he said, I will persuade Mississippi. Great, I give you my thanks. The voice in the darkness was still so warm and friendly, yet the next sentence they said was as cruel and ruthless as a blade's edge. Boss said one thing that may make you unhappy, but for our beautiful partnership, I have decided to be honest. What words? Uncle Yan's cold sweat dripped down his back. The murderous intent from the other direction became even stronger, as though it was going to pierce into his bones. He even suspected that the other would suddenly attack in the next moment. Lambs do not qualify to negotiate with wolves. The phrase swirled like smoke. The sharp murderousness at his back slowly retreated. However, Uncle Yan was motionless like a statue. A long time later, he shifted his body. His body was completely covered in sweat. Yet his face was ashen right now. The other's words right before they left hit him at his weak point like a hammer. At this time, whines suddenly came from the darkness. Uncle Yan's expression changed slightly. He shot like lightning into the darkness. In the darkness he found Song Lingxue pale-faced, tied up and gagged. I do not like this, Nanyu said calmly. At her side the other people also had gazes full of unfriendliness and enmity. In their view, it was too cruel of Yu Qinlai to use such terrible actions against a girl of only 17. Yu Qinlai glanced at her. It's fine if the result is the same. Are you even a person? Do you even have any kindness? You are a demon, you are a bastard. Nanyu suddenly shouted furiously at Yu Qinlai. She suddenly reached out and gripped Yu Qinlai's neck, her eyes sprouting fire. She appeared as though she wanted to snap Yu Qinlai's neck. Snap. No one saw the movement. Yu Qinlai seemed to turn into a shadow, and then the two switched positions. He had grabbed Nanyu's neck. The orange-haired Yao and the other suddenly stood up. If anyone moves, she's dead. Yu Qinlai's cold voice echoed in the hall. The orange-haired Yao and the others stopped where they were. They could hear that the other was honest. He would really kill Nanyu. Yu Qinlai expressionlessly looked over the group, intimidating them all. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.